I, 25 male, was planning to propose to my girlfriend, 26 female, but she admitted after a night out that she cheated on me and is begging for forgiveness. How do I go about this? I've known my girlfriend since we were in kindergarten. She's helped me through thick and thin, through periods of depression, when my parents were being abusive, when I lost my grandparents, through it all. She is genuinely my hero. She's also so warm-hearted, caring, selfless, and the best person I know. About a month ago, I told her parents and mine that I wanted to marry her, and we agreed to rent out our favorite amusement park, where I would propose to her, which is also where I confessed my love to her. It's still rented for the 29th of August. It was all so perfect, until yesterday. My girlfriend said that she's going to a karaoke event with her female friends. At 2 a.m. today, she returned, clearly drunk, and collapsed in bed. This morning, she woke up in tears and apologized profusely. After she'd calmed down, she explained that she was drunk and decided to have sex with another man at the party after the karaoke and regretted it afterwards a lot. When I asked why she'd do that, she said that she was so drunk that she completely blanked on the fact that she was in a relationship with me. That sounded to me like she would have sex with other men if she wasn't with me, so I asked if she was unhappy in bed. But she reassured me that that's not the case and couldn't ask for anything more from me and regrets everything she did. I had so many more questions that I wanted to ask, but my heart completely broke and I began crying. She hugged me and said that she would do anything to get my trust back and constantly asked not to break up over this. I said that I needed some time to think and went into a separate room. I've now been sitting in this room heartbroken for many hours now and don't know what to do. She said that she'd do anything to get my trust back, so I have hope that there's something that I can change to ensure that she never cheats on me again, like always going with her when she goes outside. But that feels really controlling and disgusting to me. Is there any way not to break up and still have trust again that she will never cheat on me again? If I do break up though, I don't think I can ever love anyone like her again. Please try to understand and comprehend that I've known her since not long after when I was born. We were often in the same class, doing the same schoolwork together, playing together, eating together, doing everything together. I spent many years trying to confess my love. We spent many years living, loving, smiling together. She feels like a part of me by now. How can I just throw that part away and pretend I'll be fine? I'm saying this because I know it's common on this subreddit to basically just say move on, but I really don't think that's possible for me. So I'm really looking for responses that suggest how we can stay together with rules to ensure that this never happens again. I would also like to hear suggestions about whether I tell mine and/or her parents of the incident. I have to tell them to cancel the amusement park event, so I probably will have to tell them what happened. But I could excuse the cancellation as me not feeling quite ready yet, or something like that. I'm mainly considering this because I don't want her parents to be mad and yell at her or be cold towards her, because, as I explained before, she's always been my hero, and I don't want someone who has helped me so much get hurt, especially because I've experienced how much that hurts. In the comments, Has422 says, "You guys have been together your entire lives? You can't remember not having each other in your lives? You've spent years living, loving, and smiling at each other. You do everything together. You are a part of each other. And she blanked on the fact that you existed when she was drunk. Do I have that right?" Yes, it seems that you do have that right. He means nothing to her, like absolutely nothing, because she was drunk. This is the exact opposite to the post that popped up a few weeks ago, where one of the two was so blasted that they didn't even recognize the other, but had the wherewithal to say, "I'm in a relationship, don't touch me," when they went for a kiss. My boyfriend has actually done that to me before when I tried to take his jeans off to put him to bed. He slept in his jeans on top of the duvet and wouldn't let me near him. That falls under the "if they didn't want to, they wouldn't" category, which applies even under the influence. Your boyfriend is a real one. OP, thank her for her honesty and for saving you years of pain. I agree. She showed OP courtesy by confessing, and he should have courtesy when he shows her the way out. Knew her since birth, but hey, she just forgot she was in a relationship when some random comes knocking. Yeah, tell her and her cheating-enabling friends to have a nice day. Edits, seriously, You guys have known each other so long, the relationship probably doesn't have that sizzle anymore and is more of a best friend state. That guy gave her that, and she just forgot about you. As suggested, part with respect, and a friendship can be saved long into the future. Update. So here's the update. A day after the post, I decided to ask for clarification as to what exactly happened. I was mentally prepared for every possible response, except the one she gave me. From all of the information she gave me, I've tried organizing the most important information below. Before the karaoke, the boyfriend of one of her friends, whom I'm acquainted with but not particularly close with, decided to join last minute. Let's call him Richard. During the karaoke, her female friends kept daring her to chug beers. She told them to stop daring her after 3 drinks, but they kept insisting and making her feel bad for saying stuff like, "You never drink much anyway, so just for today, try to have some fun," and "stop ruining the moment," and other stuff. So she continued. Ken confirmed that my girlfriend normally drinks far less, 2 beers max normally. She says that she remembers drinking 10 beers in about an hour. She says it's likely she drank more after, but that she doesn't remember anything after the 10 drinks, except waking up back home. She says that the drinks very likely made her blackout drunk. In my original post, I didn't provide much detail about when she returned from karaoke due to the word limit on posts, and me not thinking that the information would matter much. Regardless, the day she returned, her female friends were carrying her by her shoulders, and I had to also carry her to her bed. Her legs were barely moving, her body was not holding upright, and she wasn't able to form coherent sentences. Although, until then, I didn't have any experience with a person who blacked out. I can only imagine that her situation was a blackout. So I do also believe that she got blackout drunk. When she woke up, she had 10 missed calls from her friends. When she called back, her friends explained what happened while she was blackout drunk. During the karaoke, Richard said that he needed to talk to her, my girlfriend, for a moment to strategize on how they'd sing as partners. The friends decided to continue the karaoke while Richard and my girlfriend strategized. After half an hour, neither Richard or my girlfriend were back, so they started checking for where they were. Richard wasn't picking up any calls. After an unknown amount of time, Richard's girlfriend saw Richard having sex with my girlfriend. Of course, Richard and his girlfriend broke up, and then all of the females brought my girlfriend home. After finding out about this, my girlfriend was mad and shouted, "How dare he take advantage of me?" I was in the basement before I saw my girlfriend cry, which is why I didn't hear this. But her friend said that he's saying she consented. My girlfriend says that she was speechless and hung up because she couldn't believe she consented to that and started crying because she believed that she cheated on me by consenting and thought our relationship was over. She didn't know that legally, if a person is drunk, consent or not, you cannot have sex with them. I was surprised she thought this because even if you don't know the laws on this, how could it possibly be morally or even solely logically speaking fine to ask for someone's consent when they're barely able to communicate or think? I was really shocked by this story and started feeling really bad for my girlfriend. I explained to her that this is assault, not consensual sex. I hugged her and tried to comfort her and asked if she needed anything and how she was feeling. She said that because she doesn't even remember anything after the drinks, she doesn't feel any of the responses normally felt after assault, like trauma. She said that she's mainly disgusted by Richard, but also mad at herself for losing control so easily because of a dare and hurting me like this. We went to a police station to report this. The investigation is still ongoing. Also, to be honest, I was still a little suspicious that the story could have been made up or misconstrued. So I went to the karaoke place that they went to and explained the situation and asked if I could see the camera's footage. They agreed, and there was footage of the exact situation that I was told playing out. There was also footage of Richard asking my girlfriend, "Sex?" and my girlfriend responding in a very drunk and barely audible voice, "I like." That bastard really thought that that was consent? I have of course also provided this footage to the police. Although the police's investigation is not concluded, the evidence I saw is, in my opinion, enough for me to believe her. My girlfriend volunteered to explain the situation to both of our parents because she wants to take accountability for her actions. Her parents were very apologetic and sweet about the situation, which I appreciated a lot. My parents brought us both together to make sure that all of us were on the same page, and we made a big group hug, and my dad said something that really resonated with me. This situation is really shitty for everyone, but I know that love will prevail in the end. Unfortunately, it was too late to go back on the theme park that we rented that day, so me, my parents, and her parents agreed to proceed with it, but without the proposal, and invited a bunch more people. I told both mine and her parents that I would decide when the time is right to tell her that we initially rented the amusement park to propose. I told her about a week ago when things were more back to normal, and her feelings seemed very complicated as one would expect. But I think her summary of her emotions being devastated but understanding is pretty good. Thanks to the advice of many Redditors, we have decided to take couples therapy, which has been really helpful in helping us understand each other and get even closer. She proposed herself that she never wanted to drink alcohol again. She said that it never even tasted that good anyway and never made me happy in the long term. She said that she mainly just drinks to fit in, but now plans to stop. So far, that goal's been going great. We also realized that we both always want to do events like karaoke together, but sometimes worry about bothering the other. Even on the day that she went with her friends, she wanted to go with me, but thought that I looked busy, so went alone. I was not busy. We've worked hard at being more communicative and expressing our feelings more, and it's seriously been great. I've also told her about my Reddit post. I want to thank everyone for all of the advice, even if it was a little bit mean. We are both so happy right now, and I have faith that despite this bump in the road, we'll keep riding this car forever. And yeah, that is definitely not how I expected this update to play out, but honestly, OP, I'm very happy that you guys were able to come to an amicable solution to this one together. This is not how anyone wants these situations to go. This is worst case scenario possible, and I do hope that you guys get justice brought against the abuser in this case, because Christ, what an absolute piece of shit. Am I the asshole for not wanting to name my baby after my late mother-in-law? I, 26 female, am pregnant with me and my husband's 28 male daughter, and we can't agree on a name for the baby. Like, we can't even sit down and make a list of names to consider. My husband keeps insisting that he wants our daughter to be named after his mum. Her fake name was Mildred, so our daughter would be getting bullied for having an old lady name, since that's just how kids are and will always be. He keeps saying that we can just call her Millie, but her name would still be Mildred and would still be on the roll call as Mildred. Not only that, but Mildred was horrible to me. She was sweet as sugar around everyone, but as soon as it was just the two of us, she was the cruelest person imaginable and made it abundantly clear that she despised me. I don't want to name my daughter after a woman who hated me from day one. My husband has never believed me when I told him how Mildred treated me, and I thought that it was just normal for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to disagree, and that I was just over-exaggerating. He and Mildred were very close. He visits her all the time, calls all the time, everything. Towards the end, he would visit her multiple times a week in the hospital, usually for hours at a time. He'd go straight to her after work and stayed until he was told to leave. Her death devastated him, so I understand that he wants to honor her, but I can't ignore how she treated me when he wasn't around. I feel like I'm losing my mind. My husband doesn't want to call our daughter anything but Mildred, and I want to call her anything other than Mildred. Am I really the asshole? Edit, my husband won't compromise. He doesn't want Mildred as a middle name. His reasoning being that no one cares about middle names, and that since it won't be her first name, it won't really be honoring her. At least not enough, since Mildred is our daughter's grandmother, and not like a great aunt or something. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole because I don't want to name my daughter Mildred after my mother-in-law, even though my husband wants to honor her memory. In the comments, Training Moment says, not the asshole. Why don't you start insisting to name her after your mother? See how that would make him feel. Forget how that would make him feel. She should throw her mum's name into the ring. Her grandmother's name for that matter. OP is definitely not the asshole for wanting a name other than that of her mother-in-law's for her baby girl. To name a child, you need 2 yeses. In this case, there is only one, so veto. You could also agree for Mildred to be the middle name. Also, red flag for your husband not believing how your mother-in-law treated you, not the asshole. P.S. If he feels this strongly about the name, and with the way that he didn't believe you, you might be wary of him declaring the birth and naming her Mildred while you're still recuperating from the birth. This. Ensure you speak to the nursing staff and doula so that he can't go behind your back. Yeah, be careful. This is great advice. My dad changed my name last minute to something that he recently decided he liked, and my mum is a total pushover. She was mad but went along with it. So just make sure nursing staff are aware. Not the asshole, your husband is being a bully. I was also named by my father after a traumatic birth. I always hated my name. My father was in charge of the birth certificate, and he spelled my name wrong. Not the asshole, but your first problem is your husband utterly dismissing your word and feelings about how your mother-in-law treated you. That really needs to be addressed, maybe in therapy with a mediator so that he takes it seriously, or it's going to fester. I'd ultimately recommend a very small compromise on your part, since she meant so much to him, using the first initial of her name to start your child's middle name, nothing more. I couldn't agree more. I do think that there are red flags here, in that he's trying to strong-arm a unilateral decision here, that OP doesn't have a choice in the name of the child and he's going to be pissed off if it's anything other than Mildred. Why does he continue to be with her if he doesn't believe that his mother was an asshole to his partner? Like, to me, that's just so upsetting that you'd get married to someone and your partner is supposed to be number one in your life, but still they put their mother above you, even after all is said and done. Like, their own mother is more important than their family. Much to ponder, but definitely not the asshole in my opinion. Update. We found a compromise. It took me having to track down an ex to tell him that Mildred wasn't all sugar and spice and everything nice, but he finally understood and we had a long talk. He still wanted to call the baby Mildred, but agreed that it was a little too old. We compromised on Amelia, with Millie for short, so that there's still a homage to Mildred as they were very close. I'm ready to pop and we are happier than ever. In the comments, Gonzo Puro says, "Congratulations again, and Amelia is a beautiful name. But the fact that your husband would still want to honor the woman who was abusive to you is not a good look for him. Make sure that you're the one filling out her birth certificate info, just in case." This. If you think this person is crazy, my mum filled out my birth certificate while my dad was busy getting her food. She said, "Hey, just put your info down and I'll fill out the rest while you go down to the cafeteria. My name should have been Ricky. It most definitely is not."
God damn it, Ricky Bobby.
You having to track down one of his exes to get him to believe you is a massive red flag. Totally agree. He believes the ex, but not his own wife? Yikes. Why do women sleep with and get pregnant by men who either think they are 1, liars or hysterical, or 2, are effing stupid? This has always been absolutely baffling to me. Now, I do understand that some people hide their true colors and become horrible after marriage or having kids. That really sucks and must be terrible to deal with, but so many posts, and I've seen this in real life too, are from people, I've seen all gender identities and sexualities with this issue, who say that they're dating a person with some issues that bother them, and then married them and had kids, and now they're shocked Pikachu face that this person still has this issue? Like, why exactly are they surprised? Their partner has been consistent the entire time. Our next post is by user Savings Carpenter, titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my parents they were horrible and saying they shouldn't have more kids?" Hi, first time posting. I, 16 male, was born when my parents were very young. Like, my mother was 16 and my father was 17. Both families decided that it would be best for me if effectively my maternal grandparents raised me and my bio parents got to live their lives. That's not to say that I didn't know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations like in the movies where the mother pretends the daughter's child is actually her own. I and everyone knew who my progenitors were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23 and I was around 7, but that doesn't mean that we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions, or showed interest in my academic work, or took me to do any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi and not even look at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more parents than her. My father was still living away. They weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays, and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activity like going to the cinema or my favorite restaurant. Things like that. But to me, he was more like a strange man than a dad, because when I compared him to my friend's father who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man, who I saw maybe twice a year, was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago, my father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. I don't hate him, I just don't know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool, because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started to hang out, and a couple of months later, they announced that they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument with them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents didn't let go of the idea. My parents asked for me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because even though I had never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. I don't like being around her, and she's treated me poorly my whole life. And I feel like she's now only trying to save face because she knows my dad wants me there. Now on to the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced that they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I can finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself trapped in a corner, and I said that was never the problem, and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could finally be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be a bigger family. I was shocked, and I blew my lid on them. I told them that they were the worst parents in the world, and that they abandoned me at 16, and now they were going to bring another child into the world and do the same to them? And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake that they made, and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist, and dumping me to be other people's responsibility. And only now that they feel like they care, they want to be my family. My mother screamed back at me, telling me I was a brat and that she wasn't going to make the same mistake twice, raising her second baby, and I told her she never raised me to begin with. And my father said that they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, guess what? The best you could was pretty effing bad. I stormed out and went to my room sobbing. I've been very depressed for the last week. They've both called and texted since, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me, and I shouldn't move, and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe that they are starting a new chapter in their lives now, and they are far more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think. I'm the same age that my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them. Am I the asshole for the way that I reacted to the news? More info on the relationship with mum and dad. OP says, my father really wants us to be a happy family. When the three of us together, you can see him beaming with joy, like he can't stop himself from smiling and making comments like, "This is everything one could possibly want," and stuff like that. I think my mother has probably sold him a completely different story on what our relationship was growing up when he left, and he doesn't seem to notice the tension between her and I. As far as my living arrangements, they would have to pull me screaming out of my grandparents, and they signed away the paternal rights sometime after I was born, so I don't think they even have a legal foot to stand on if it came to that. But I just hope that they can come to respect my decision. Someone else says, when you're ready, consider meeting your dad alone to find out information from him. And OP says, I was thinking that too. I want to have a conversation with my father, mostly about my concerns about my mother and what to do moving forward. The more I think about this, the more I'm scared about my little sibling because I'm not sure how my mother would take care of them. I'm starting to feel like there's a lot of things that I don't know about the time when I was born, and why I was effectively abandoned because my other set of grandparents, paternal, don't live that far away, and I see them occasionally, but it's always more uncomfortable with them. They have other children and grandchildren, whereas my mother is an only child. So when I visit them, I feel like the odd one out because I'm usually alone in a big family environment. But about why my dad didn't reach out to me, I don't know, and I want to confront him about that. As far as I'm aware, when he was away, he didn't keep much contact with my mother either. This is just since he came back. That's why I feel like I need to talk with him and set things straight, because I feel so lost, honestly. Back up to the post, there is an edit. Thank you everyone for the verdict of not the asshole. I feel better, and it has somewhat cleared my mind. Also, huge thank you to all that are commenting about how awesome my grandparents are. I'm planning on showing them this post so they can see how much everyone can see the amazing kind of people they are, and they deserve all of the love and appreciation I could possibly give them, and more. I've also come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentments and unanswered questions, as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight with primarily my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he abandoned me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother because I'm worried about my sibling being abandoned and mistreated like I was. So I'm preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him, and we'll meet tomorrow or the day after, and I'll confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Update. Hi everyone. Thank you for all the responses. It really helped a lot. It's been an emotional couple of days and a lot has happened. My mind's a little bit dispersed, but I feel like I owed you all an update, and I'm going to try to be as clear as possible. For those of you who didn't read my OP, the gist of it basically was that my 16 male parents had me when they were very young, 16 female, 17 male. They got separated and left me to be raised by my maternal grandparents. My mother was around but couldn't care less about me, but my dad went away and we had very sporadic but positive contact. Now he's come back, they're back together, they're having a new baby, and they want me back into their lives. I refused and told them they're horrible and shouldn't have kids, which brings us to the OP. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents, and they were so surprised by it. They were very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are, and I, in turn, also took the opportunity to tell them how much I loved them and how much I appreciated everything they had ever done for me. They are my real parents, and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears, and they told me they loved me and how proud they were of me. They never thought of themselves of doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of family, but they're the best. After that, I tried to collect my thoughts and arrange a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Like, why did he abandon me? Why did he think he could just reappear into my life like that? That I wasn't going to move in with them, and I didn't consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at a park, and he went to hug me, but I stepped away. And he looked hurt, and he just apologized for what happened the other day and went into this speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries, and I went blank. I didn't expect for him to talk, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post that I made the other day, and he started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all and some responses, and he just asked me if this was true. And I said yes, and he said that if I had any questions, he would answer them honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Abortion, adoption, marriage, Gramps taking care of me, only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was deadly scared of adoption because some religious groups had told them some horror stories about dead babies and mothers being killers or some BS like that. So she wanted to give me up for adoption, but my father refused. He couldn't bear the idea of having his child living somewhere and never seeing him again. So he proposed to taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city. But his parents weren't happy with that plan, so they pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. She was an only child, and at that time, they were just 40, whereas my father has 5 older siblings, and his parents were already in their 60s. And since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well, my maternal grandparents decided that it was the best decision for them to take me. Also, immediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression, and the doctors advised them to not completely remove them from her side, or more damage to our relationship could be done, and my grandparents wanted her to eventually love me as a son. One thing to note about my father that I didn't mention in my OP is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news for me. My grandparents don't know about this, but my mother does, so I don't know what to do with this information. My father thought of me the entire time he spent away and believed he had left me with a happy family and that he was working to give me a better life, but I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff and barely had any contact with me. I asked him why couldn't he have made more of an effort to be a part of my life. Like, I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it's no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just doesn't cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in the comments here that I would forgive, but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward, but it'll always be marked by his actions in the past. If he hasn't been my dad for 16 years, he can't start now. He seemed sad, but accepted my conditions. I then told him about my concerns about my mother, told him how bad he treated me as a child, that I didn't think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go low/no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things, but that quickly ended, and when he came back, she explained to him that her and I had a great bond, and even though we didn't see each other daily, it was because I was in those teenage years, and that she loved spending time with me and had been a very hands-on mum. I told him that everything she said was a lie, and that she had never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my post, but I also told him other things like when she would ask my grandparents for babysitting money for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting to my face when we still lived together, and that severely messed me up. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a child to be treated like that, and that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me that I would have a bedroom in his house, but he perfectly understood that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point and got choked up when he asked me if, even if I didn't consider him my father, would I consider his baby my sibling. I said of course, and that I planned to be a very active part in their life if I could. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I'm happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he'll be a good parent for my sibling. Once again, thanks to everyone who commented and took interest in my story. I don't know if I'll update again. Final update. So, a lot of you warned me about shit hitting the fan, so to speak, when my bio mother talked to my dad, and today, that's exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mother and that he didn't want anything to splash into me, and reassured me that he believed me completely. And I braced myself because I expected her to call me, berating me or something. I truly don't care about what she thinks, but these past few days have been emotionally draining, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another full-blown confrontation. Using Reddit to vent has been helpful though. After a few hours, my mother pulled up to our house and let herself in, screaming like mad and calling me every name in the book, saying that I had ruined her relationship and asking me why had I been blabbing about private matters that doesn't concern anyone. I said that my childhood matters to me, and my father is also going to be the future father of her child, and that her actions ruined her relationship. She called me an asshole and said that I was the biggest effing mistake she's ever had in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow. And I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed to my mother, "How dare she speak to me that way?" My grandma soothed me a little and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped my mother a new one. They confronted her, telling her the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were for her always treating me with disgust, and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a child trying to raise a child, but she was now an adult, and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her, and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of that. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life that she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever, and I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle that ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she radically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room, and my grandparents looked extremely serious, and my mother was red and crying, and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately, and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after the debacle, and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting thing or something, and he confronted her about everything. Apparently it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby, on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me, so that whenever I visited them, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise that she wouldn't contact me until they talked again, but there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think on what's better for himself and for the baby, and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing that's come up in a lot of the comments on my previous posts is that my progenitors only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and baby for my own sake. But I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions. I know nothing about them, but I'm really excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins, but whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and visited me for Easter, Christmas, barbecues and stuff, but I didn't really know them, and although they were nice, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said, "That kid John had in high school." I can't wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be that person they can always rely on for them, and I want to feel that bond with someone. So even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do, I have a lot of them, I do not have any misgivings about being a big brother. I hope that this is the last update and that there is no more family drama in the future. Thank you all for all of your help. Having the site to air out my frustrations and having a community to back me up and give me feedback has been amazing, and you truly have helped me out a lot to deal with all of this, so really, thank you so much. In the comments, Leah Love Food says, "This poor kid. Those grandparents are saints for stepping up, and I do hope things improve so that OP's younger sibling can have a good life. And I pray that other Redditors are wrong, and that the only reason the total POS parents want OP in their lives is to be a free, built-in babysitter for the new baby. But seeing how often that posts show up on Reddit, I tend to agree with them. But the mother's reaction to finding out that the dad knows the truth said everything that I needed to know. That she's still a POS and is probably using OP. Yeah, and I don't have high hopes for Dad remaining as upright as he seems. And it is still surface level because he let 16 years slide with barely an acknowledgement of his failure as a parent at the moment. Even if he gets sole custody of both kids, how likely is he to be hands-on single dad versus finding a bangmaid to become the new mummy while he travels for work and the cycle continues with baby 3? Damn, I need to get off Reddit. I'm hopeful that he really just didn't understand the situation. He was sending money and taking OP to do fun things when he could, which in a lot of circles is what a dad is supposed to do. And he thought that OP had a mum and both sets of grandparents on a more regular basis. He could have felt superfluous. Now that he knows what's up, his reactions have been pretty good. But that's just what I hope, and without further updates, what I choose to believe. My brother's 27 male, girlfriend 26 female, has an altar of my child. I'm 34 male, wife is 32 female, brother is 27 male, and brother's girlfriend is 26 female. I'm looking for advice here because this is completely over my head, and my initial reaction to this is probably way off. My brother has been dating his girlfriend for about a year now. She's a nice girl, but at times her behavior is odd and erratic. She's asked over and over again to babysit for my kids, girl and boy 3 and 5. My wife and I have always said no. This weekend we had a barbecue and she was acting extremely strangely, only speaking in a baby voice, not talking to any of the adults, running around with the kids. My wife pulled me aside at one point, extremely upset. She had found her in our 3-year-old's room, in her playpen and ball pit area, sucking her thumb, covered in our daughter's blankets, with all of her stuffed animals. My wife was completely confused as to what was going on, and when she asked my brother's girlfriend what she was doing, she responded in a baby voice that she was tired and needed nappies. My wife came immediately to get me, and we both confronted my brother to ask him what the hell was going on. My brother got extremely embarrassed. He said that his girlfriend has dissociative identity disorder, and one of her alters is a 3-year-old girl. My wife and I don't know anything about this disorder, so we didn't really say anything, just told him to please go get her and to keep her out of our kids' room. He went to go get her, but within 15 minutes he still wasn't out. I went to go see what was going on, and his girlfriend was extremely upset, insisting that he calls her Evelyn, our daughter's name. That was the last straw for my wife. She told her to leave. Brother's girlfriend started straight up sobbing, using her baby voice, saying she's confused and doesn't understand why everyone is being mean to her and calling her the wrong name. That night, my brother called and admitted not only is one of her alters a 3-year-old, it is very specifically our 3-year-old. He said he can't talk to her about this because when she's not her Evelyn alter, she doesn't remember anything, and when she is her Evelyn alter, she isn't rational. My wife and I told my brother she is not allowed at family functions anymore, and she's not allowed around our kids. My wife was extremely upset and told my brother that his girlfriend was psychotic, and that she doesn't understand why he was still with someone like that. My brother is upset that my wife said those things about her and said he understands we would be upset about her having an alter of our daughter, but she can't help it, and we should be more understanding because it's a disorder due to childhood trauma. Did my wife and I handle this the right way? We know nothing about this disorder, and doing research into it, the medical definition doesn't seem to match the way that my brother's girlfriend is acting. She doesn't have an official diagnosis. Putting that in bold because people keep asking. Apparently it was rude of my wife and I to ask if she was getting treatment or had a diagnosis because therapy isn't available to everyone and self-diagnosis is valid. She comes from a very affluent family and definitely has the resources to get therapy and a proper diagnosis. In the comments, MJ8 says, "I've got some really serious concerns about your brother. I'm not an expert on DID, so I'm not going to offer opinions on that, but your brother knew about her fixation on your child and brought her around that child without telling you anything. He's also in a relationship with someone who, at least some of the time, believes she is his 3-year-old niece. He didn't give you the chance to decide if this is someone safe for your child. This should be higher up. Everyone is fixating on the girlfriend, but ignoring the betrayal of a brother who would have let her babysit your kids without blinking. He is dangerous too. That concerned me too. My first assumption was that he is one of those guys who can't stay away from a volatile chick because the sex, I would presume, is just spectacular. But the darker suspicion would be that there is something about this childlike behavior that appeals to him specifically. Wouldn't be the first couple who let their DD/LG type relationship bleed into their everyday life with the excuse of age regression and dissociation. It's possible that he's innocent in his intentions towards her behavior, and that it's just a fault in her that he's overlooking for whatever reason, but he's certainly not innocent with regards to his brother's kids. Some serious BS is occurring here regardless of who specifically it's coming from and why. I know DID is debated among professionals about whether it's a legit thing, but from the people I've seen who claim to have it, their alters are their own identities. It has never ever been with someone else's who actually exists. This is a bit that throws me off further. She claims to have a 3-year-old as an alter? Sure, whatever, but saying that she's your daughter? This is way more concerning. Don't let her back until she's sought professional help. I would ban her from my house. You don't need a reason to decide who is allowed around your children, and this woman has given enough reasons anyway. Trying multiple times to babysit little kids while behaving like a little kid, allegedly due to a mental illness that she didn't disclose, that's really messed up. If she really is suffering from dissociative identity disorder, she is not handling it appropriately. And you can tell your brother it's not because you despise her, but because you don't feel your kids are being safe around her. Yeah, and if this was me in this situation, I would go no contact with him if he didn't break up with her. That's a very serious danger to have in your child's life. There's a reason they say don't stick your dick in crazy, because look, it's put your brother's children at risk and you've been enabling it too. OP's brother is possibly enabling child abuse to occur, and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it at all because, he would have squashed this before it ever became a problem, or if he saw that things were crossing the line, if he were a normal person, he would have mentioned it to OP and the family and been like, hey, gonna keep her away, she's a bit too weird for you guys. I know I got weird taste, and there are boundaries that we don't cross in life. Christ, I'm surprised you didn't call the cops on her because I would be seriously threatening to do that. At the point that she's messing around in the child's room, I'm going to consider that trespassing. Get the hell out of my house. Update. So to start things off, my wife and I have done a lot of research into dissociative identity disorder. Right off the bat, I'll be blunt here. I don't believe in the fad DID or anything that goes along with it. I don't think people are programmed to be systems. I don't think people make fictives over characters from TV or movies. I definitely don't think it's possible to make an alter of a specific 3-year-old girl. I think that's all attention-seeking BS. I don't know about the validity of actual DID, if it does exist, because at this point it is being faked so much, it's impossible to figure out if it's an actual disorder or not. Side note, how insane was Trisha Paytas's DID arc? How have we just forgotten that one? I definitely don't think if someone did actually have DID, they would be on Reddit casually talking and making videos about meeting the alters and BS like that. Just like Trisha Paytas did. And no, I don't think being in the DSM proves any validity whatsoever. I do think if you are really convinced you have DID, you probably do have some sort of disorder that you should get checked out with an actual reputable doctor. Now that's out of the way, my wife and I have heard from my brother after the party. He still thinks that we owe his girlfriend an apology. We told him that he owes us an apology for not telling us about the girlfriend's erratic and psychotic behavior. I'm not the one using term psychotic to be insulting, I really do think she's experiencing some sort of psychosis. My wife told him that due to his extraordinary lack of judgment in bringing her around our family and our kids, when he knew about this, we didn't really feel comfortable having him around our children without one of us directly there either. We encouraged him to get her to see an actual doctor and get checked out. We told him we'd be willing to help her look for doctors in the area if she needed support and didn't want to involve her family in this for whatever reason. But we also told him under no circumstances will she be allowed around our children ever again unless she goes through intensive therapy, realizes what she did was wrong, and apologizes for it. Thanks to everyone for pushing us in the right direction as to what to do. We really appreciated all of your inputs and comments. To clarify, I'm not saying DID isn't real. I don't know. I think you all know what DID fad I'm talking about. I don't believe in the social media DID, the meet the alters and watch me switch BS. And yes, she does have a TikTok account where she does pretend to be my daughter. Just like that recent iconic line from Jada Smith as the paparazzi are annoying her. She's like, "We're suing." That's what you need to do here, OP. Jesus. In the comments, Curious Tsukihime says, "Protect your children. This is disturbing behavior, and the fact he tried to hide and then excuse her issues when they directly impact your home is such a breach of trust. I'm proud of you and your wife securing your border. If no one else has said it, cameras, cameras, cameras near the egress and ingress points of your home." He hid it and didn't bother to mention it when his girlfriend kept begging to babysit the children over and over. She had developed an unhealthy fixation on the 3-year-old, was trying to get her under her care unattended, and he still said nothing and continued to bring her around until it was impossible for him to hide it from them. Honestly, who knows what might have happened if this woman had gotten a hold of the daughter and the brother wouldn't have done a darn thing to stop it. OP replies, "Thank you. We already have cameras installed, but we're looking into getting 2 more near the entrance of our driveway and at the edge of our property in the backyard. I'd let daycare, preschool / any childcare person know as well. She could show up and try to claim that she's the nanny. Truly, OP, you can't be too safe with this type of situation, and I say that as a school nurse." I totally agree. OP and his wife need to lock down access to their children from school, grandparents, and also things like the doctor's office. You are 100% correct. She is faking this. Either she has a mental illness other than DID, or most likely, she's faking for attention or because it's the latest fad. Probably spends way too much time on TikTok. Your brother is enabling this. What's worse is he is in a romantic and sexual relationship with a woman who pretends to be his 3-year-old niece. His 3-year-old niece. He sees his girlfriend pretending to be his baby niece and is okay with screwing her. Even if he doesn't do it while she's faking, he's still seen her acting as this little girl and continues to have sex with her. If he doesn't see that as a problem, that's a massive red flag in itself. Honestly, keep your kids away from her, and possibly him too, while he's with her. Remember last year the girl who found out her parents' kink was the mum pretending to be her? Oh no. Sorry, what? Yeah! Apparently the parents' kink was the mum dressing up in the daughter's clothes for the dad, and they'd have sex pretending the mum was the daughter, and from what I remember, she cut contact and moved away. Holy shit! That poor girl. What the hell is going on in that house? I wonder if the dad has pedo tendencies, and this was a way for the mum to keep him from exploring. Even if this were the case, the complicit behavior is subtly terrifying. What's wrong with people? Thanks but no thanks. I'm gonna scrub my brain now. I wonder if there was a certain couch involved in that story. Who knows? Final update. Things escalated with my brother's girlfriend, who has an alter of my child. This is probably going to be my last update because we have since cut off all contact with her and my brother and are in contact with the police. She refused to get inpatient psychiatric help willingly, but her family put her under a 5150. Long story short, she approached our child while she was at the park with the nanny. Luckily, the nanny knows about the situation and removed our daughter immediately, contacted the police, and then contacted us. She tried to tell the nanny that we had told her to pick up our daughter and take her to her grandmother's house. She waited until it was close to the end of our nanny's shift to make it more believable. Luckily, the nanny didn't engage with her. She just picked up our daughter and walked away, recording the entire incident to have proof. She ran after the nanny, telling our daughter, "Go ahead, Evelyn, tell her you know me. We're gonna go to Grandma's." Her family told us that there has never been any abuse in the family. She's never claimed to them that she has DID, though they have long suspected she has histrionic personality disorder. My brother has not contacted us since this happened, but my wife doesn't want contact with him anyway, and I agree with her. Again, thank you for all the advice and well wishes. Though she's never allowed around my family again, I'm incredibly happy that she's getting the help she needs and hope her recovery and treatment go well for her, and I wish her the best. In the comments, Styrax Carolon says, "The girlfriend has a TikTok account where she pretends she's the 3-year-old, even though she claims to have no memory of being the 3-year-old. That means the 3-year-old Alta is just supposedly setting up the camera and shooting the TikTok video, and her adult self just happens to find the videos and upload them? Or is the toddler also uploading them? Nothing sketchy about that scenario." Haha, sarcasm. Conveniently, everybody who believes in this particular manifestation of DID and wishes it was the whole split personality bullshit from TV shows of yore are stupid enough that glaring plot holes and missing details like this don't appear to bother them whatsoever. Invective Detective says, "I'm less interested in debating whether DID is real, and far more interested in understanding why, after the brother realized his girlfriend was fixating on his niece, he did F all to protect that little girl. That's why OP and his wife are angry. He knew her condition, but he still let her around the kids. Nothing screws like crazy. Also, ew. How could he sleep with someone that's claiming one of her identities is his niece? I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want any more answers to this one. I'm just glad the police were called and that OP and their partner did something about this because, dear Lord, there's just too many levels of depravity for me. Our next post is by user FriendlyFox4575, titled, "My husband deserted me without a word. I'm still reeling from this and just need to vent. My 48 female, husband 50 male, and I have been homeless for about a year after he was fired from his job, but staying in motels. I do work online and have been able to keep a roof over our heads. He hasn't worked in a year. So on Tuesday, when he said that he had a job interview, I was excited. He walked since the truck broke down and was sold. He said he needed both phones for numbers, so I gave it to him not thinking anything about it, especially since I could still get in touch with him via text now. After about an hour, he texted me and said he got the job and just had to fill out paperwork and get his drug test and would only be a couple of hours. Then I saw 3 expenses on the bank card in the county over and knew something wasn't right. Those couple hours turned into that night, the next morning. He not only wasn't answering my texts or calls, but he blocked me completely. He had both phones, both bank account cards, and my valid ID. Before I had a chance to cancel the cards because it was my money on there, he had pretty much wiped out the account. I still had a few days left at the motel, so called around. My dog, cat, and I are safe at the moment, and I opened new bank accounts, but have to wait on the cards to arrive. But we can't stay here forever. I'm hoping the card arrives soon, and I can get my ID done so that we can get back into a motel, which is the only option at the moment until I can build up enough money for rent deposit, etc., and find a cheap apartment or house. I do have a paycheck coming Thursday, though I'm not sure what to do after Monday when I can no longer stay where I am. As far as I know, my husband is with another woman. He contacted his brother just long enough to say that he was safe, but wouldn't give an answer why. We've been married for 9 years, but started dating back in 1988. We weren't arguing, and I thought everything was fine. Not a word, and I'm just devastated. I just can't fathom why he just left me and our pets like that with no access to money and tried to clean it completely out, a vehicle or even a live phone. He knew that most likely we would be out on the streets, but luckily we did find a temporary haven for a few days. I guess he just found a piece of us he wanted more than someone who supported him and was loyal throughout these bad times. I figured he found another woman with more money or something who could take care of him like I did. Anyway, thank you for letting me vent. In the comments, Free Speech is Dead says, "Your future ex is a first-class turd and a thief. I'm sorry this happened to you, OP. I know how hard it is to start over. Do you have some family or friends to help you? OP says, not really. All of my family are deceased, and the only person I could call is helping me right now, but I can't stay for more than a couple of days. We've had to move so many times because he couldn't keep a job or wanted to try someplace new. I think I became really isolated from everyone. I thought another friend was going to help, but they said that they thought about it and didn't want any drama at their house if he decided to show up, which I can't blame them for. It's pretty much just me, the dog, and the cat. I'm sorry you're going through this, and I hope you take the time to process your anger and sadness. Hopefully soon you'll be able to look back and realize he did you a favor by disconnecting his barnacle ass from you. He's heartless, jobless, and a thief, and you will most likely thrive, and down the road be much happier without him. He really doesn't deserve you. OP says, thank you. I've been thinking a lot the past few days, and have started to think and realize he was using me to support him. I lost one writing job last month, and just started another one this month. I guess he didn't think that I'd be able to support him. He left before he knew that I'm actually going to be making more money than before. I just have to wait until the first pay on Thursday. Wow, I'm so sorry this happened. Thank you for sharing. You will be okay. You've got this. And OP says, thank you. I'm trying hard to keep the sadness down and try to stay angry so that I can get things done. I can have a breakdown later. Update. First of all, I would like to thank you for everyone's kind words of encouragement and advice. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to respond to everyone. Myself and my pets are still safe. My new bank cards should be coming in today or tomorrow. With my paycheck on Thursday, I get to move into a studio apartment I found. It's small, but bigger than a motel room and has a kitchen. They allow pets and even have a little fenced-in dog play area. I'm still working to beef up my paycheck for the deposits and food. After I get settled in, I do have an appointment with legal aid counseling for the area. So things are definitely looking up, and I really feel like I've got this and can take care of myself. Where I work has announced that there will be a huge increase in work available and should continue through the next year. And if he even tries to contact me, I'm not buying anything he says, especially if he tries to weasel his way back in. He can talk to my lawyer. In the comments, Guano Barbie says, in the divorce, list the fact that he drained the accounts and request alimony, Lamau. Probably won't go very far, to be honest. Her assets are far greater than his, and she's the one with an income. If anything, I'd avoid asking for anything, because it's much more likely that she will need to pay him out. Still theft on his part, especially if she held on to records of the removal of her money. If women get tagged for it, I'm sure he can too. But I don't even think this is in Canada. I'm so glad you're safe. In addition to changing your bank accounts and your direct deposit, if you haven't already, I would put a freeze on your credit since he has your ID. You don't need him adding identity theft to your list of problems if he tries to open accounts in your name. OP says, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. You might want to add fraud detection with the major credit bureaus. That way he can't buy anything in your name and ruin your credit. Hopefully his family isn't supporting his bad behavior. OP says, the family members I've spoken to have completely cut him off. They said they'd hoped that he would grow up, but they find this situation disgusting and they won't give him any help if he comes asking. So glad you're safe and moving forward. Please check in from time to time and let us know that you're still okay. I hope he never finds your new home. Be free of that dead weight. OP says, thank you. I've lost 10 pounds in the last week, but I feel like I'm even lighter with the additional 220 pounds I lost. Lol. Update 2. I just wanted to give another, and hopefully final, update. I still haven't heard from him, but I don't want to, and the lawyer I speak with on Thursday can take over tracking him down. The furballs and I are in our new apartment, safe and sound. It took a lot of hard work and every penny that I had from my paycheck, but we made it. I still need to go get furniture, but we have a roof, and that's a great start. We're going to be alright, I know it. And even though I need time to know and love myself again and heal, it was kind of a confidence boost to be flirted with by a couple of the neighbors, lol. Thank you for all the support, love, and kindness through these past couple of weeks. Last update. I thought that last post would be my last update, but I know many people were concerned about me seeing a lawyer, which I did today. The retainer won't be too bad, but it will need to wait until next week for payday. But it's the beginning of the next step. And I did hear from him. I received a short email, which was the only way he knew how to get in touch, which just said, "Sorry, how are you?" It took a lot out of me to not respond because there is still a lot of hurt and grief that I'm processing. But I'm proud to say that I just sent a message back with a number of the law office that I was going to, then created a filter to send future messages to the trash. It hurt, but it felt good at the same time. I truly want to say thank you for all of your kindness and support during this time. I have had several people reach out and message me to share similar experiences, and it breaks my heart to know that this has happened to so many other women and men. Edit, after a few people mentioned it, I did create a folder for any of his messages to filter into so that I can keep and forward them to the lawyer. At the moment, I didn't even think about that. Thanks for the advice. In the comments, I like drawing and stuff says, "All of this sucks. Mostly him. I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but in the end, you'll probably be better for it. Sounds like you have everything it takes to get your life back on track and be stable and happy. Him, not so much. Good luck." And OP says, "Thank you. It'll take time, but things are slowly starting to fall into place." I'd rethink the filter sending his emails to the trash. He may send something incriminating that your lawyer can use. Have them go to a folder so you don't have to see them, but definitely talk to your lawyer about it. Good luck, and I'm glad that you and the fur babies are doing so much better. Am I the asshole for telling my ex that his children are not my problem? I, a 34-year-old woman, have a 10-year-old daughter with my ex. We separated 5 years ago because he impregnated another woman. He spends weekends with our daughter. Recently, my daughter has been expressing that her dad's stepson is bullying her, and her dad isn't intervening. My ex's stepson is 15 years old, so I was taken aback when she told me that he would physically harm her, such as hitting, kicking, and even pushing her down the stairs. She also mentioned that her half-sister keeps taking her belongings. I confronted my ex after she relayed this to me. He dismissed it as kids being kids and suggested that our daughter should just get over it. He also said his other children require more attention, and if our daughter can't cope with that, she shouldn't come over to his house. In response, I expressed my frustration, stating that I wasn't concerned about his other children's issues. He should stop neglecting our daughter's well-being. He then ended the call abruptly. Shortly after this, his wife sent me a lengthy text, accusing me of being an antagonist for stating that her kids aren't my responsibility. P.S. His children do not have any special needs or disabilities. So, am I the asshole for saying that my ex's kids aren't my responsibility? In the comments, MittenGirl60 says, "Okay, stop calling, start texting. You need things in writing now. A 15-year-old boy is literally abusing your daughter. He is physically assaulting her, and your ex is doing nothing about it. Calling is not the way to do it. You need proof of what he says and what he wants to do, and you need to be the pragmatic parent here. The only one who is handing out the olive branch and trying to find a resolution. So, as much as you want to set a stick of dynamite off up his ass, you need to send him a text something along the lines of this. I wanted to check in with you to see if you were really serious, but since we tried to discuss this over the phone and just yelled at each other, I don't want to just yell at each other. I really need to understand what is happening here. Our daughter is telling me that her 15-year-old stepbrother is hitting her and kicking her and pushing her down the stairs, that her younger sister is taking her things when she's there, and that you're not doing anything about it and just saying that kids will be kids. Of course this is going to upset me because, and I'm not being mean here, your other children honestly are not my problem. I'm not related to them, and I can't control what they do. I expect you to handle that. And then your wife got upset and called and yelled at me. So, were you serious when you told me that you feel like maybe our daughter shouldn't come over anymore? I didn't expect that response from you. I don't understand why you wouldn't just stand up for all your children equally and not allow them to be mean to one another. If you really think that she shouldn't come for a while, how long do you want this for? How do you think we should handle this? I know we argue, so I just wanted to text you instead, because that way it simply is what it is on the page, and there is no accusing anyone of anything or making the other angry. Please text me back and let me know what your thoughts are and what your solutions are to this problem. Again, when we text, neither of us are arguing. It really is simply that we're putting down what we see the problems and solutions are. I really want to work together to be good parents to our daughter, and I understand that you also want to be a good parent to your other children. So how do we resolve this? If he tries to call you, do not answer your phone. Make him leave you a voicemail. If you're lucky, he will hang himself in the voicemail. If you're not, listen to the voicemail first. Save it no matter what it is. Then text him back again and tell him that I see that you just called. I couldn't pick up right now, and I see that you left a voicemail. I will listen to it as soon as I can. But in the meantime, please text me what you want to do. We need to work this out without actually talking for the moment, because I don't want to have another big argument. That gets us nowhere. And if he flies off the handle like it sounds like he does, he's probably going to be dumb enough to say that. Yeah, she shouldn't come over for a while because it's just not working. And then, you go and get a consultation with a family law attorney about getting full custody of your daughter. Or at the very least, supervise visits only for your ex. And in the meantime, make a list of the things that your daughter seems to be missing. Ask her when she got hit, when she got pushed down the stairs, and all of that, and make notes. And if it was recent and she has any bruises, take a picture. Evidence, 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 as much as you can possibly gather. Your daughter's safety is your first priority. Get full custody, sue for child support. Not the asshole. I don't care whose kid it is. They hit my kid? Oh, it's on. I agree with this. Protect your child at all costs, OP. Update. Thank you for all the advice I've been receiving. I talked to my daughter about not going to her dad's anymore. She's expressed that she still wants to see him because she loves him, but she feels like he doesn't love her. This deeply upsets me, as no 10-year-old should feel that way. I texted my ex, stating that if he wants to see our daughter, he should take her away from his house. Alternatively, if he prefers not to see her, I will take this matter to court and file for full custody. He responded by saying he doesn't care and that I can remove his parental rights as he has his real children with him. Additionally, I mentioned that I'll be pressing charges against his stepson. He simply ignored that text, so I'm taking legal action and have sent the screenshot to my friend, who is a lawyer. I'll provide further updates once everything is resolved. In the comments, Aromatic Brain says, him terminating his parental rights sounds more like I don't want to pay child support, which is the child's right. My advice is to keep the child support. I'm sorry that your daughter has a mega asshole of a sperm donor. Yeah, don't let him off on that. Piece of crap, my real children? I hope that was in the text and it was saved. Just for you and everyone else's information, terminating parental rights does not get you out of paying child support. If it did, baby trapping a man wouldn't be a thing. Parental rights are what lets you have input on shit like your kid getting their ear pierced, playing a sport, or traveling to a different country. Child support is a parental responsibility. Signing away your parental rights doesn't get you out of it unless someone else agrees to formally adopt the child in your place. You go, Mama Bear, but consider getting daughter therapy. It's hard when a child loses a parent like this, even when the lost parent is a loser. I agree with therapy. My whole family has therapists because we believe in it so wholeheartedly. Second this. It is bad enough for her that her dad didn't protect her from abusive stepbrother, but to learn that he prefers his new family, including abusive stepbrother, over her without so much as a second thought, while she still loves him after he failed to protect her, must be devastating. She needs someone professional to help her through this and to make sure that she understands it's not her fault, but totally her dad's. Wow, so sad that rather than intervene in the bullying going on in his house, Dad claims to be willing to abandon his daughter. I suspect he's failing to supervise, support, and build his relationship with your daughter when she is visiting. He wants her to go along, absorb abuse, and not complicate things by being an individual with a voice. Either that, or just throw her away. It sounds as if his home is unsafe for your daughter. Good on you for putting her needs first. It's appalling that her dad requires she be unsafe and quiet about it as his condition for spending time in the same house with her. A small update. So, a lot has been going on for the past few days. I've talked to my lawyer. She said my ex might twist it into me being the bad person since I blew up on him, but she did say that if he did, he would just embarrass himself in court. I also asked my daughter if her being abused by her stepbrother was racially motivated, since my daughter is mixed. I'm black and my ex is white, and so is his new family. She at first didn't understand until I explained, and she said her stepbrother called her the N-word. She doesn't know what that means. That's why she didn't think that it was important. After she told me this, I put her to bed and texted my ex asking if he knows what his stepson says about our daughter. And he said yeah, he says a little bit of racist things, but it's not relevant. After that text, I knew that I was going to press charges on his stepson. I was debating whether I should do it or not, but after what she told me, I knew what I was going to do. I called my lawyer again and explained everything, and now we're waiting for a court date. By the way, my ex has been blowing up my phone. He probably got the court papers. Thanks for all the support. I don't think I'm allowed to post anything about the case, so I might update once the case is over. In the comments, a penguin girl says, "What an absolutely awful man. That poor child. She said she thought her daddy didn't love her, and I sadly think she may be right. To be bullied, beaten, called a racial slur, and have your father essentially disown you is a lot for a child to deal with. My heart breaks for her. No child should have to endure abuse or be treated like garbage. I hope the kid remains safe and the dad gets his life ruined. Anyone who abuses children deserves to go to hell. Who else bets that his new family is only his real family because they're white?" Was about to write precisely the same thing. Dad isn't bothered by his white stepson saying little racist things about his mixed-race daughter because Dad has moved on to the adult-sized, bigger racist things. His putrid heart must swell with pride to see his stepson following in his footsteps. Seems like a white kid with a mixed-race half-sister wouldn't turn out racist unless a parent was racist too. There would be so many opportunities to teach and learn minimum human decency. I always love seeing parents stand up for their kids. This is a shit situation, and I think OP is smart to get X's confession via text. Amen. I think the mum is great for standing up for her daughter. At least that little girl has one good parent who loves and cares for her. Dad belongs in jail. That's child abuse. I agree, as much as a flaming cactus belongs to his rectum. I'm divorced, and I have my kids 50% of the time. I can't really imagine my reaction if I heard that one of them was treated like that by his mother. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Alerting, titled, "My female 21, fiancés male 22, parents are making his sister rescind her coming out during church service." The reason I'm making this is because my fiancé and I need help with a situation on the 3rd of September that recently came to our attention. My fiancé's parents are extremely religious, but they've been worse to his sister, who is 15 years old, than they have been to him. When he was growing up, they didn't force him to attend like her, and he admits that he was a golden child. He would miss church and youth because of sports, and their relationship was fine when he moved out because they weren't as strict on him. He was allowed to work and have secular friends, and they didn't make him do purity like she did. But we were recently made aware of something that will make us rescind their invitation before cutting them out of our lives, but we want to ask for advice before doing that. His dad made a Facebook rant about how he discovered his sister being gay due to parental controls showing search history, and he also ranted about the importance of them as such. He also said he spoke to someone at church and that she probably will too. However, on the 3rd of September, she's going to be prayed over during service, and we're worried about her and how it seems she's being made to apologize, and we want to ask if there is anything we can do. The church is fairly big, with over 1,000. We're going to uninvite anyone who attends that Sunday in agreement with her parents, but the wedding isn't our priority right now. Is there anything that we can do to help her out of this situation while we still have a good connection with her parents? We'd especially appreciate to hear from anyone who might have been in a similar situation with unacceptable parents. Edit, we live in New York, and the church where his sister is being forced to receive prayer at and apologize is on Long Island, New York. We're trying to see if we can see her sometime next week before the 3rd of September, as school is out, and we're on good terms with her parents as of now. We live in New York too, but a few hours away from them. We want to talk to her in person due to the parental controls and her advice that started this whole mess when her father outed her on Facebook, and we've taken her shopping in the past without her parents, so that's the angle we're thinking of if we can see her. We're debating what to do if we see her, and she says she doesn't want to be present on that Sunday, and if that would be enough to have her stay with us through Sunday without legal issues, and we know that that would burn a bridge with her parents too. Her safety and mental health is more important, but we're considering if doing that would hurt our chances of potentially taking her in before she turns 18 if it comes down to the courts. In the comments, Geophagus asks, how old is she? Can you get her out of the house and in with you? And OP replies, she's 15, and we have an apartment in the same state, but a few hours away. As of now, we're on good terms with her parents, and we'd more than let her stay once she's older, but we're not sure if we can arrange anything to get her out of that service next Sunday by staying with us in time. We're trying to see if we can see her before that Sunday, though. What state? Where is this? I don't see any reason why you can't let her stay at your place until Grandpa has had a chance to cool off. This is not kidnapping in the US. The long term is really less important in some ways. This week, she needs to not be around him. Your spouse can go to the church that day in her place. She has the legal right to emancipate herself, but it sounds to me like Dad needs time. 10 years from now, he'll be beaming and bragging about the grandbabies she and her wife have on the way. If Grandpa is going to do something rash like disown her, etc., then this would save a lot of time, and she could skip all the trauma that he's got planned for her. OP says, Long Island, New York. We're on good terms with them right now, and we're discussing what to say and do if we have the chance to see her this week and arrange something with her parents. We are also fine with her staying with us if she doesn't want anything to do with next Sunday, but we're wondering if that'll destroy things with her parents to the point where it would hurt us to try and emancipate and have her stay with us before 19, or destroy our efforts to do so legally. Maybe if she wants to stay with us over them next Sunday, that could be a short-term solution. I respect what you're trying to do. Frankly, you should first reach out to the sister to make her aware and see what she wants. You should realize that if you're unable to get the parents to agree to stop this, you will likely be taking her on until she is 18. The leverage you have is that they risk losing their son over this. OP says, we're really trying to see if we can see her next week, and her being out of school still helps. She probably won't open up to us if we called her due to parental controls, and especially how that led to her dad blasting her on Facebook for finding her search history. So in person would probably be best. In the event we're able to go shopping or something with her, she says that she doesn't want to be there that Sunday and prefers to stay with us. How should we proceed from there if she says that when we're talking to her without her parents present? Tell the parents she doesn't want to go and that they need to honor her request. If they do not, then you and their son will cut off all contact from them. Ideally, you can get them to agree to have her live with you and also provide financial support. Hopefully, the risk of losing their son over this will snap them back. If they object, be prepared to go nuclear on them. Inform them that they will be cut off not just from you and their son, but any and all future grandchildren, as you would not want their hateful and bigoted views to be spread to them. Update. My fiancé was able to call his dad shortly after my first post, and he asked if we'd be able to come up and see them this week. He didn't get into a confrontation on the phone because we figured that would hurt our chances of seeing her or risk being cut off for disagreeing. Thus why we haven't rescinded their wedding invitations or anything hasty. He asked if we could come to attend church with them on Sunday in light of the post, and he said that we could come on Saturday and spend the night along with doing something on Saturday afternoon. So as of right now, we plan to drive up on Saturday morning. We live a few hours away, and we talked to one of our friends for advice that we're close with about what to do once we're there. But we're hoping to find some more advice because we're debating some ideas for Saturday, and we're open to any suggestions that we get. The reason we asked if we could go to church with them was because of an idea that I had, but I want to ask about it here. My fiancé asked if we could take her shopping when we go, and we've taken her shopping in the past without her parents. If she states that she doesn't feel comfortable with what her parents are making her do at church, would that be enough to drive her somewhere else like a hotel or back to our place to avoid it if she wants? Or would that interfere with any chances of being able to legally take her in before she's 18? Some people commented that she should be old enough to not go to church or anywhere if she doesn't want to, but would her parents have grounds to accuse us of kidnapping and take her back? That's where we're at so far, and we're considering a lawyer too, and have looked up some this week that we're considering reaching out to. I'm also going to share this on a legal subreddit, but we're open to any advice we can get, and especially from anyone who's been through something similar. New update. So I wasn't able to get an update sooner because the past few weeks have been challenging, but we received a lot of great advice, with one in particular that I'll highlight momentarily. A lot of people said that we needed to reach out to an actual family lawyer for advice instead of Reddit, and that's what we've done since our previous post. The reason we came to r/legal advice initially was because we had less than a week until his sister would basically be outed to the church. As stated in our update, and later echoed by the lawyer that we found, we understand that trying to remove his sister from the situation on the 3rd of September would have been a terrible idea that could have resulted in his parents pressing charges for kidnapping, and that was an emotional idea that many shot down rightfully in our updates, after many suggested taking her for a drive to remove her from that Sunday on our first post. When the 3rd of September came, we were able to stay at her parents' home for the weekend after my fiancé received permission in our update post. And we had a chance to talk to her parents on Saturday too. But before we get into what was said, someone in our update made a comment suggesting that we don't rock the boat with her parents, and instead try to show his sister a healthy, straight relationship so that we can be a part of her life and give her somewhere to vent as she may very well need. We both liked this idea and decided not to rock the boat when we saw them, but my fiancé has struggled in the aftermath of that weekend, which I'll get into later. Long story short, her parents told us that they're going to have her talk to someone, a leader, at church about her being gay, and they said they received prayer from others who saw the Facebook post, along with those they called to vent. The only thing we challenged them on was why they felt the need to out her on Facebook, to which her father said that she needed support from others who would basically talk her out of it and pray on their own. When we suggested trying to be a good example of a straight couple, they liked the idea and said they hoped our wedding would be a good example for her too. They also said that college would be off the table for her unless she showed change, and that's on top of privileges that they took away too. We weren't able to talk to her one-on-one on Saturday because she stayed mostly in her room, aside from greetings, and she ate dinner in her room as well. And when Sunday came, she rode in her parents' car while we followed them to church. At some point after worship, one of the pastors invited them to come on stage, and they basically prayed for her while laying hands on her for about 5 minutes. My fiancé said that it was short and similar to how they dedicated babies occasionally on Sunday morning and had the newborn be prayed over by a pastor. The only difference was that a pastor told the congregation that she was struggling with her sexuality, and the prayer involved rebuking world influences and friends and types of media that they think played a role in it. In regards to his sister, she kept a straight face and wasn't crying or anything, and they didn't ask her to say anything either. Her parents also took us to lunch afterwards, and she was rather quiet / on her phone, despite her parents telling her she did great and so forth. We left shortly after lunch because we had work on Monday, but her parents agreed to hang out with us again soon. And when I asked if we could try to talk to her ourselves to try and get through to her, they said we could next time we came over, although things have been difficult with my fiancé since. My fiancé really wanted to go to support his sister, and he made the call to his dad to get permission to stay at their home over the weekend too. However, when some people came up to their family and talked to his sister / her parents after service, some people spoke to my fiancé and asked how he was. and he said that it really bothered him a few days after. He grew up in that church, and he said that being there was somewhat traumatic when he didn't expect it to be. Some people asked why he stopped going, among other things, but he also had second thoughts about keeping in touch with his parents for his sister's sake since. Long story short, he said that it was hard to not explode at them and play a face for those 2 days, and he's been hyper-focused on it the past few weeks too. He said the trauma, has been eating at him when he's at work, and it's awoken some memories and trauma inside of him that he might have forgotten about since living away from them as an adult. He also wants to uninvite not just his parents, but every Christian relative that he's aware of from our wedding. I have no issue uninviting people from our wedding, and I also wanted to uninvite his parents, although we initially decided against it to keep a connection with his sister. He says he wants to talk to a therapist, but not couples therapy because there's some trauma that he never told me from his childhood, and I want to respect his space until he's ready to talk about it, or even if he never does. He thinks a therapist will tell him to put his upcoming marriage and mental health ahead of his sister, and I could see that honestly too. My commitment is first and foremost to him, as it's supposed to be upon marriage, but as for right now, he's looking for a therapist that'll work with his insurance, and I told him to do what's best for him first, because it's hard to help others if he's hurting. The thing about put your gas mask on first. So we're just waiting to see what comes from therapy. In the comments, this is so awful. I feel so bad for the fiancé's sister, fiancé, and OP. I assumed that the sister's phone had been confiscated. Took me a while to stop being infuriated on why he didn't just talk to the sister directly. OP mentioned parental controls and tracking on the phone, so I think that's why they were afraid to text her anything too honest, in case it would be visible to the parents. I think they should have snuck her a burner phone to communicate with them directly though. Yeah, my mum put several controls on my phone until I left for college, tracked my phone, you can set alerts anytime someone leaves or arrives at a place, and read my texts nightly. It was very hard to hide anything on there. Speaking from experience, I can see a burner phone being an immediate way of contact, but depending on how often she or her room is searched, it would be a pretty big risk of things blowing up even further if she is caught. Am I missing something? Or does the update read to anyone like they didn't actually do anything to support the sister at all? Like, we the readers know that OP and her husband have no problem with the sister being gay, but if I look at this from the sister's point of view, it looks like her dad outed her and set up this whole being prayed over thing, and brother and sister-in-law drove up there to be at the church when it happened. OP says they didn't get a chance to talk to her one-on-one, and while we could be a good example of heterosexuality, is a great idea for getting the homophobic parents thinking they are controlling their daughter's inputs, what are the odds they said something like that to her, especially with the acknowledgement that OP's husband was the golden child? Your brother's coming up with his wife. See? Why can't you be more like him and OP? Look at how happy they are. And then they don't ever tell her that they support her and watch her be subjected to this prayer stuff at church, and then go home. I believe OP and her husband had good intentions, but I really don't think their actions helped the sister at all, unfortunately. And if it brought up past trauma for him, meaning they'll be able to give even less support while he's struggling with it, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if his sister thinks that he agrees with the parents. Yeah, it read really bizarre to me that they didn't even try to tell the sister, hey, this perfect example of a heterosexual couple is a ruse, thus making the sister feel more awful about this. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they didn't get the chance and were very worried about the parents hearing and catching them and cutting contact. They are worried about her enough from the tone of the post that I think they would have said something if they could have. Am I the asshole for trying to send my deaf daughter to a school that won't hire an interpreter? So my 34 female, daughter 6 female, is deaf. We adopted her 3 years ago from China. When she first came home, we tried to teach her both sign and speech, but it was clear that ASL was the best form of communication for her. We hadn't put her in preschool because she didn't have much communication, but she started kindergarten this year. There's a private school that all the other kids and my sisters go to. She had to take a test to get in and passed, but they said that because there was a deaf school within an hour of where we live, they wouldn't provide any accommodations. So either we have to pay for an interpreter or send her to the deaf school. But the deaf school we live near is only for children with hearing aids and CIs and teaches speech and has actually banned sign language. I think speech can definitely help deaf children, but it depends on the individual child. Some speak, some sign, some do both, but my daughter communicates best with sign language, which is why we don't want to send her there. Since this is a private school, I don't think they have to follow the disability guidelines that public schools do. Currently, my daughter is doing online school at a local public school, who have provided an interpreter, but the education there is horrible. I sent my oldest son there in kindergarten and first grade, and he never learned anything. I'm aware that you don't learn much in kindergarten and first grade, but they didn't even teach them how to read. I had to do that myself. Another reason I want to send her to the private school is because from pre-K and up, the kids can choose to learn ASL, Spanish, or French, so she may be able to communicate with some other kids there. She's had a few playdates with other kids in the area who go there and took ASL, and they were able to communicate pretty well, whereas in the public school, she would be completely isolated and only able to communicate with the interpreter. I've been constantly emailing with this private school trying to see if there is any other way to get my daughter in without having to pay for the interpreter myself. My brother thinks that if the school doesn't want her, why should I keep pushing for her to get in? But I just want the best education possible for my daughter, and I want my daughter to be able to be social and make friends. Am I the asshole? Should I just let it go and keep her in public school? Or should I keep trying to get my daughter into this school? In the comments, Cat-Eyed Troll says, private schools are still required to comply with the ADA. They must provide auxiliary aid within reason for deaf or hard of hearing students. The cost for providing auxiliary aids and services may not be imposed upon the individual with a disability. Please see here for a breakdown of what's expected of private schools under ADA. They cannot tell you that they will not provide this aid. OP, I have a disability and my parents had to deal with my awful public school regarding providing my legally protected accommodations. Most schools, whether private or public, will try to get out of providing disabled students things they are legally obligated to provide. Source, the lawyer my parents consulted who specialized in special education law and disability rights. Some schools are much, much worse about it than others. In our experience, most school officials either don't know what they're talking about when it comes to disability rights, or they will flat out lie to you. Do not accept what the school says when it comes to your child's rights as a person with a disability. As someone who also went through a school trying to deny me my legal rights as a student with a disability, I strongly advise that you consult a lawyer who specializes in special education law and disability rights. From now on, any and all communication with that school should go through your lawyer. And if you can't afford a lawyer, make sure that you have records of all communications with the school. Emails are good. Legally record any phone or in-person conversations, and do research on disability law so you can cite specific things. Hopefully this would help scare the school into doing their legal obligation to your child. And if they don't clean up their act, you should consider consulting a lawyer about filing a lawsuit against the school. Don't feel bad about filing a lawsuit against the school though. They know what they're doing is wrong and illegal, but they choose to do it anyway. This situation is that serious. Your daughter deserves and requires an interpreter. If you want her to go to the better school, invest in the interpreter. Your local deaf school is a joke. Please involve her in deaf culture. It is rich and her birthright. OP replies, I try my best. I'm hard of hearing, 75 decibels bilaterally, and never even knew what deaf culture was until I was a teenager. Right now, sending her to school without an interpreter is completely not an option. We send her to deaf camp and go to deaf events like signing Starbucks and things like that. We may be able to move to Greenville SC in a few years because of my husband's job, which is in the same county as the SC school for the deaf, so in that case, she would be able to go there. But she still has kindergarten and first grade left. Update. Thank you all for your advice on my last post. I wasn't aware of all the laws about this kind of thing. For those of you who didn't read the OP, basically my 6-year-old daughter is deaf and communicates using ASL. There's a public school near us, but it's very bad, and the whole district has a rating of 1.5 out of 5 stars. All of our other children go to a private school near us, but the private school said they wouldn't pay for an interpreter because there is a deaf school in our county, but the deaf school only teaches speech and no sign language, so we decided not to send her there. We also wanted her to go to the private school because there was a language option for ASL, so she might be able to communicate with other classmates. But my brother said that we shouldn't push trying to get her in. If the school doesn't want her, we should just give up. Most people said to hire a lawyer. My husband decided to contact his brother, who is a disability lawyer, and although he specializes in wheelchair accessibility, he was willing to take on our case. We discussed the situation over the phone with him, and then he reached out to the private school. He emailed back and forth with the school. We're not sure what was exactly said, but by the end of it, not only did the school agree to pay for the interpreter, but they also provided a free scholarship and let us request which teacher she had, which they didn't let us do for any of our other kids. There's a kindergarten teacher who knows some ASL, so we chose to be in her class. I'm not exactly sure why they did this, but I think it's probably because denying entry to a kindergartner just because she's deaf would not look so good if other people found out. But I'm not complaining. She started 2 weeks ago, and she loves it. They are doing hybrid. She's able to make friends and talk to other kids, though in kinda broken sign language. Her interpreter is very nice and will update us on how she did every day, unlike the interpreter she had when she was in public school. Her teacher also tried to sign when she's speaking as much as possible, and so do some of the kids. Overall, I'm so happy this happened, and I wouldn't have known that there was anything I could do about it until I asked on here. So thank you all of you who replied to the OP and told me they do have to provide an interpreter for her. Edit, my pronouns are she, her. I'm not sure why everyone's referring to me as a male, but just wanted to let you all know. Edit 2, to everyone concerned as to why my brother-in-law is a disability lawyer, but I came to Reddit first, we barely talk to brother-in-law. He's my husband's half-brother, and there is a 16-year age gap, so they aren't close. And at the time when I first posted, I didn't think that I could do anything legally. I talked about why in the comments, so I didn't even think of talking to my brother-in-law. I was just concerned if I was being too pushy, which is why I came to this sub rather than legal advice. I hope that clears some things up. In the comments, Ricola says, "Good job on following through and working for your daughter. I'm not sure where you are, but rest assured that school is going to get their scholarship money back through government grants and tax breaks. It makes me happy to know that private schools are being expected to meet the same basic standards as public schools, especially when so much money is being funneled away from the public for the private schools, at least in the USA. Plus, this is a win for everyone. The other students get to learn in real life how sign language can make a difference for someone, and practice it. My best friend in elementary school was deaf, so our whole class learned ASL. 80s kids. I've continued to use it as much as possible since, from teaching my kids to communicate before they could talk, to communication with my deaf and hard of hearing customers and friends. I love reading about a child doing well. I imagine she'll have a class full of kids who learn ASL, which is great for all of them. She may have plenty of fights in her life to get what she needs, and you are showing her that she is worth the fight. Seriously, this made my morning. I didn't even read the post this update is for, but I'm so relieved for this little girl and her parents. Any school for the deaf that only teaches speech gets a suspicious look from me. I'm very glad that OP was able to get the accommodations that will let her daughter stay at an ASL teaching school with her siblings. I have zero knowledge of specialized teaching or funding in OP's district, so this is your usual high-value Reddit comment, but it sounds like the entire public school system in OP's area is under-resourced. What's the betting that teachers qualified to teach in ASL get paid a premium, and it's cheaper to hire teachers who meet the probably low standards for teaching special needs students, but don't know ASL? Nah, it's almost certainly Alexander Graham Bell's fault. I'm not even joking. He was extremely influential in getting oralism, the concept of refusing to let deaf people sign to the point of tying their hands down if they do, into deaf schools. He hated deaf people and thought they were less than human, even though he married one. What the hell kind of school for the deaf doesn't allow sign language? That's the most bizarre thing that I've ever heard. There's really strong schools of thought on this issue within the deaf community. If you get the cochlear implants route, you might be encouraged to really commit to it exclusively because it can be a really difficult transition. It's not like just switching your hearing on and off. You can eventually switch it on and off by removing the transmitter and sound processor. I don't think you're supposed to at first, so you can adapt, but eventually you can remove the external parts. Our next post is by user Disco Storis, titled, "Am I the asshole for asking my fiancé to bring me a glass of Prosecco?" I, 20s female, and my fiancé, 30s male, were enjoying a Friday night wind down, had dinner, yogurt, and were sitting down for TV. We're on season 7 of 24, my first time watching. I decide to paint my nails pink as we're going out tomorrow and seeing my family. They haven't seen us since we got engaged last month. I'm in a good mood and feeling happy. After painting one hand, I ask him if he fancies opening a bottle of Prosecco tonight, well-stocked post-engagement. He says yes. I ask him if he could bring me a glass too, please. That's where the argument began. No shouting, stomping, etc., just speaking our minds and then silence before resuming. Generally, we get along great and have very healthy communication. Hell, we managed to compromise on a child-free wedding easier than this. He wanted children there, I didn't. We've settled on child-free ceremony and kids for the dinner and reception. Back to the argument. His perspective was, it's weird of me to ask him to bring me things, be it a beverage or a blanket, that I'm a grown woman and should do these sorts of things for myself. Him doing it for me would be simping, and asking him to do it is toxic. From my perspective, it's a glass of Prosecco and my nails were drying. My love language is acts of service, and I make him at least 3 cups of tea a week. A simple refusal is fine. His attitude about me asking was, in my opinion, toxic. Earlier on in our relationship, I did ask him to get me glasses of water semi-regularly. We had a discussion and he expressed his frustration. I now don't really ask, maybe once a week at most. The last time was in a cafe. For unnecessary context, if you're interested, I wonder if it's how we grew up. He's an only child and claims his mum never asked him to do anything like this for her. He is fiercely independent and can sometimes exist in his own little world. Whereas I have an older sister, and we just did as we were told really. Definitely learned to play host at family gatherings, offering food and drink, and just being pleasant. If someone asked for something like a drink and you said no, that'd be considered rude. But I digress. I asked for Prosecco, even though my 5-foot legs do in fact work. Am I the asshole? In the comments, St. Alvis says, not the asshole. Quote, doing it for me would be simping, and asking him to is toxic. Gee, it's almost like guys who go after women way younger than them have shitty views on how relationships work. Definitely not the asshole. That he thinks doing his fiancée a kindness is simping is flat out embarrassing at any age, but especially his big age. What's he gonna do if she gets sick in some way? I'd rethink the engagement, OP. My father yelled at my mother for asking for a glass of water while she was breastfeeding. He was not a good father or husband. I'll never understand how there are so many posts on here with couples that genuinely dislike helping their partners out. It's so sad that so many people don't want to do little things to make their person happy. Not the asshole. And where did this whole love language thing come from? This post is the 3rd time I've seen it today. What did I miss? It's from a book written by Gary Chapman, a homophobic Baptist pastor. He did marriage counseling through his church using his 5 languages. Then sometime in the early 90s, he wrote the book. It didn't really take off until a decade or so later, which is probably why you haven't heard about it until now. It's basically just a glorified personality quiz, but people seem to take it super seriously and literally. Also, I think it's really weird that it's set up in a way that makes people think they have to choose a way to feel loved. Like, the first time I read the languages, I realized they're all my love language in equal parts. Almost like I'm a healthy adult human being with fully formed emotional and physical needs across the spectrum. I say this as someone who has been happily married for 2 decades. The key to marriage is being kind to each other. Don't save your best behavior for others. My husband always makes me coffee in the morning, and he always fills my vehicle. I always make him a cup of tea at around 4 and pack his lunch. We both do nice things for each other even though we can do them ourselves. Not the asshole. This. Been married over 10 years. I'm on cold drinks, he's on hot drinks. I make the lunches, he wrangles the small human in the morning. We alternate sleep in days. We alternate meal prep. I'm chronically ill, so he gets me things when I'm sick. I make sure that when I'm well, I take more of the load. I make sure he rests and takes sick days and do most medical things. He manages travel. Do these couples even like each other? Yeah, where's he getting this idea that doing things for your partner is simping? How is doing things for your partner that are just normal everyday things suddenly bad? Why does he decide to view it this way? Who were his role models and where did life go so astray for this guy? Because as much as I want to be mad at him and be like, what a dickhead, I kind of just feel sorry for him that this has happened. It's just a Hanlon's razor incident. Where it could be malice, I think he's just an idiot. I think he's just stupid. I think he just needs a little bit more education, but you're definitely not the asshole here, OP. Update. Hello, Reddit. Thank you for all taking the time to comment and engage. While the consensus was that I was not the asshole, I did enjoy hearing all the perspectives on this situation. Here's some common misconceptions or curiosities to clear up. 1. I bet he listens to Andrew Tate. This was clearly interpreted from his vocabulary. It's shocking language and has a lot of misogyny attached. When he said simping, my mouth opened like a fish impression. However, he doesn't listen to Tate and only knows the term from Reddit context. And no, he's not a 4chan veteran or similar. 2. Trying to hide a big age difference. I was purposefully vague. I'm 26, my fiancé is 35. We met in person through a shared hobby and began dating 2 years ago, at 24 and 33. We've lived together for over a year. After our first date, we had a discussion about power imbalances, equitable splits, proportionate to income, and consent. I'm gonna shock a few people, but he's genuinely a feminist. 3. What happens if you get sick? We joke that I've been ill for most of our relationship, thanks to my poor immune system to colds. Also, my wisdom teeth only started emerging at 25. When they began coming through, it was excruciating. 10 out of 10 do not recommend, and he ran out to the shops before work to get me numbing liquid and has been doing ongoing support when I've had flare-ups. I also took care of him post-wisdom teeth removal, so it flows both ways. 4. Don't make him tea and see how he'd react. I know how he'd react. He wouldn't notice or care. In fact, I've recently discovered that he enjoys making himself teas as a break from his activity to stand up and move around. So maybe I'll stop, not to teach him a lesson, but to give him gestures that he'll value instead. So anyway, flashback to last night, some wanted more detail on the actual exchange. I did ask him in a very round-the-houses way. I guess because after our Watergate, he's been very reluctant to say yes to any requests I make, no matter how infrequent or simple. During our arguments, I asked if how I asked would have changed his response, to which he said no. When I realized we were getting nowhere, I went to the bathroom and removed my nail varnish. When I said, your view on fetching things for your partner is abnormal, he said, ask Reddit. So that's what I did. I sat down on the sofa and typed out my response. At first, I was relieved to know that my opinion was validated. When I saw the first dump him message, I suddenly lost all my anger and felt very amused by the caricatures we had clearly become. I called out to him and said, if I open the Prosecco, will you pour the glasses? And he agreed. We drank the whole bottle together, reading all the comments. He apologized for his language, and I apologized for mine. It was a very eye-opening experience. I had overused whatever partner privilege involved fetching things last year, but after our discussion, I had actually actioned his feedback completely. He, however, hasn't appreciated that I'd changed and remained on high alert for any princess behavior, resulting in being a meanie. Where are we now? Well, to the disappointment of many, we are still in love and planning to get married. We've enjoyed a lovely time with my family today. I think this highlighted the need for a happy medium, and that's how he'll be showing me. Communication wins. In the comments, Morrigan says, "One time I made a joke and told the dog to go grab my cell phone from the other room. My partner thought that I was talking to him and brought it to me, even though I never would have used that tone to speak with him. I even got a forehead kiss. I guess I'm a princess." Honestly, it's the same way for me. Reading this post almost had me convinced that simply getting items for your partner was wrong somehow. I'm always fetching things for him, and he's definitely always doing the same for me. It's just love and kindness. There's a meme that says something like, marriage is saying, while you're up, over and over to each other until you die. It's so foreign to me that someone would take a stand on fetching things for the person they live with, within reasonable parameters, not like a butler. It's such a basic gesture. Archer's Arrows says, "Very early on in our relationship, my ex-boyfriend got out of bed to get a glass of water. I asked him to grab me one too, so obviously that led to at least 30 minutes of him screaming at me for thinking he should ever bring me anything, as one does. We broke up because the Crown prosecutor hit him with a restraining order after he tried to kill me, 3 years later. I had an ex who woke me up by hitting me so that I would get him a glass of water while he had a kidney stone. He said he would do it for me, so I forgave it because he was in pain. He did not get me a glass of water when I had a kidney stone. He told me to suck it up and that it's not so bad, so I got my own water. My kidney stone was multiple stones, the largest of which was twice the size of his, the smallest about the same size as his. When I brought that up, he told me that it isn't a competition. I finally got sick of the lies and abuse and broke up with him. He cut the screen on my dining room window to gain entry to my house and crawled into my bed naked as something of a grand gesture. When I reacted negatively and tried to kick him out, he started a physical fight and ended up breaking my leg. Edit to add, I was writing this in a comment but figured I'd add this here. He showed up on my doorstep after the PO ended. I had a male tenant at the time, who was only here for a month, and the ex backed his car between the 2 trees on my lawn and parked right in front of my front door. My tenant thought that this was sketchy and just hit him in the face as he got out of the car. My daughter and I were not home. Thankfully, the tenant had bought my old car, the one that I had when I was with my ex, so it was there. I think the ex thought that he was catching me by surprise. The ex just got in his car and left. But he went to the local bar and started complaining to anyone that would listen that he just showed up to apologize to me and some dude hit him in the face. I stopped by on my way home and heard this from the bartender and regulars. According to them, they all just told him to leave me alone. It's been 4 to 5 years since then, and I'm still not convinced he won't show up again. And I'm just glad that I'm single because these are some seriously bad relationships, my god. My parents invited their friends on a family vacation, and now I don't want to go. For context, my parents are swingers. I found out about them being swingers right after I graduated high school in 2016. I never really had an opinion on the matter until recently. I don't care what they do behind closed doors, but I personally don't want to see it in person. I'm sure that makes me sound like a bad person, but I've always accepted them for who they are. It's honestly just really weird to see my parents make out with other people when they're around a group of people. Anyway, they're in a relationship with another couple and have been with them for almost 2 years. They, being the other couple, just recently moved in with my parents because they lost their house and couldn't find another place in time. My parents kicked my sister, her fiancé, and their baby out of the basement in order to give their friends the space and put my sister, her fiancé, and baby upstairs in one bedroom to share, which is a small 12 by 12 room. The friends have also stated that they are another set of grandparents for my niece and call themselves Grandma, insert name, and Papa, insert name. My sister and her fiancé are not comfortable with this, but my parents and their friends don't seem to care because they're all together as one. Now, onto the vacation. We were supposed to go on our first ever family vacation last year, October 2021. but it ended up being pushed back to April of this year due to costs because of my wedding, which everyone was fine with. It then got pushed back again because my sister was in her 3rd trimester of her pregnancy and couldn't fly. It is now scheduled for February of 2023. My parents told my sister and I, along with our significant others, that they would be bringing their friends along on the vacation, and I'm frustrated about it, to be honest. With the way that they've been handling things with my sister, and with all of their PDA, it made me not want to go anymore. It's our first ever family vacation, like I've already mentioned, and I wanted it to be just family. I'm at a loss, and I'm not sure how to handle the situation. And we don't want to upset my parents about how I and everyone else, my husband, sister, and brother-in-law, feel. Any advice? Edits. I'm married and do not live at home anymore, although my sister, her fiancé, and baby do. They're currently looking for places. We live in a state where the cost of living is super high, like a lot of places right now, and with them only having one income, it's harder for them to find something. Hopefully that clears things up. Edit number 2, I didn't expect this to get as much attention as it did, and I've read each comment and taken advice. So thank you. I'm fully aware that my parents are adults and can do what they want. I never once said that they couldn't, and I never said I wasn't against their relationship with this other couple. They refer to themselves as swingers, but yes, you could say they're in a polyamorous relationship. The issue I have is how they shove it down everyone's throats. I don't care what they do in private, behind closed doors, but once I see the PDA and the other things they do with each other when other people are around, that's when I get uncomfortable around the situation. They have a calendar on the fridge that says what nights they will swap beds and sleep with the other person. For example, my mum and the other woman move between my dad and the other guy. There are also times when they make sexual jokes about screwing each other or randomly flashing each other when we are around. Like, at least wait until people aren't there to do those things. That's the part that I'm not okay with. In the comments, Dexterous Styles says, "Your parents sound incredibly demanding and childish. I wouldn't go at all, point blank. Tell 'em. Your parents strike me as the type of people who do shitty things, don't care about how anyone else feels, and cover it all by saying nonsense like, 'I'm just living my best life.' This is so bizarre by so many degrees." OP replies, "It is so bizarre. I truly love my parents, and I know that it would hurt them if I tell them I'm not going, but it makes me so uncomfortable on so many levels to see them doing these things with another person. I think I'm just going to talk to them, and if they decide they're still taking them, I'll tell them that I'm not going. Thank you for your comment." OP, honestly, from what you've said in the original post, the bit you seem the most uncomfortable with is their priorities. They've prioritized sexual partners over their own kids. It's the equivalent of having something akin to step-parents, if you break it down. They have inserted themselves into your lives, annexed spaces from the children, and then pretend like everything's good, whilst downright ignoring any external feedback to the contrary. The fact that they view themselves as grandparents to your sister's child is disturbing, and it lacks any personal boundary. Your parents and this couple are divorced from reality to the point that they prioritized a couple who needed space over their daughter, her partner, and a child. That's effed up, and you have every right to not be comfortable with the situation. If I was you, I would not only not go to this gathering, but make your feelings and thoughts known to them that their behavior is not okay. Who they choose to have as sexual partners is one thing, but who gets to be in the family is something entirely different and requires everyone's involvement, not just theirs. OP replies, "Thank you for validating my feelings on the subject. I'm going to talk to my parents this weekend and let them know how I've been feeling." Don't go. I bet your sister doesn't want to go anymore either. Tell your parents they can take either their kids or their bang buddies on vacation, but not both. Your siblings can arrange for your own drama-free family vacation, minus the olds. If I were you, I'd invite them out somewhere for coffee or lunch or whatever without their friends. Explain that I appreciate that they see me as enough of an adult that they were able to be honest about their relationship with the other couple, but that being said, I'd hope that they can understand, though, how nobody wants to have their parents' sexual relationships on display in front of them. I'd tell them that I'm uncomfortable with this new couple and do not view them as family, regardless of the relationship they currently have with them. The upcoming trip was to be a family vacation, and in light of all that is going on, it is no longer something that would be a fun trip with my family, and I will no longer be joining them. Let them be upset. They've decided who they want to spend time with. Update. Hi everyone. A few weeks ago, I made a post about my parents inviting their friends on a family vacation and said I'd give an update after I'd talked to my parents. Well, I did, and it didn't go well. Also, sorry the update took so long. I've been struggling with the outcome really badly, and I needed time to write it all out. So, on to the update. I brought up all of my feelings to my parents, and they weren't very happy. They asked why I never brought it up, and I told them that it was because I was fine with everything until I started seeing it, and that's when it made me uncomfortable. Now they think I don't accept them for who they are, and they don't really see an issue with inviting their friends or doing other things with their friends in front of everyone else. My mum basically said that what they do is none of my business or anyone else's, and they can do what they want, which is true. They're adults and can do what they want, but some of the things they do should be in private settings and not for others to see. They also consider their girlfriend and boyfriend to be family, again, which is fine. I know many people do, and since it's a family vacation, they're still inviting them, regardless of how everyone feels about it. I just want to be with my parents for once without their friends being there, and having them all be all over each other. They also see no issue with their friends calling themselves grandparents to my niece. I got upset and told them my husband and I would not be attending the vacation and they could take someone else, and until they understand where I'm coming from, I would not be going around. So for the time being, my parents are being cut off. I'm very sad about the outcome, and it makes me sad that they would choose their friends over their own child, but to each their own, I guess. Thank you for all the comments. I read every single one of them. Even if I didn't comment back, I still read them. There were some very nice supporting ones that really helped, and also some not very nice ones that also helped. So thank you all. In the comments, BananaPants22 says, "I'm sorry about that. Did your siblings ever back you up?" And OP says, "Yes, my sister agrees with me. I'm not sure if she's planning on going or not, so if she doesn't, we might go on our own little vacation." They flash each other with other people around? Yeah, her parents are messed up. Yeah, that's just effing gross. Flashing your junk to your sexual partners in front of your kids. I don't care if the kids are adults. That's just... no. Not just gross, it's sexual harassment or assault, and it depends on where you live. Flashing someone without their consent is a sexual crime, and they're doing that to their children. You hate that we're poly and happy. No, it's literally the everything else, like putting your daughter, future son-in-law, and grandchild in a 12 by 12 room instead of your homosexual boyfriend and girlfriend. It's not anyone's business. Makes out in front of the whole family? No, it's normal. It's just really normal family dynamic, this one. Hey, OP's parents, if you think that's a real nice and normal time, I have a couch to sell you. Our next post is by user Spee8, titled, "I, 28 male, am starting to fall for my wife, 24 female, and I'm unsure how to proceed. This is all a very complicated and sad situation. About 4 years ago, my wife and partner of 8 years passed away due to complications after the birth, very rare, of our second son. I was deployed at the time and completely devastated. After flying home, I felt like nothing would make me happy again. My sons are great, now 6 and 4, but overwhelming. So I asked a sister of one of my Marine buddies, Cass, to help out. She had been friends with my wife, but not great friends, and she agreed in exchange for a place to stay. At the time, Cass was only 20 years old and in quite a bit of debt in fault of her extremely abusive ex-boyfriend, who she finally left about 3 months earlier. During the first few weeks of her helping out with the boys, she asked to borrow money to see a doctor due to shaking hands. No insurance. I happily obliged. She was an angel, doing all the cooking and cleaning and keeping my young family together. It turned out that she had developed some sort of neurological disorder, probably brought on by repeated abuse. At the time, it seemed simple. I had good insurance, she needed healthcare, I never thought that I'd be able to move on from my wife, and she was afraid of intimacy. I agreed that I would marry her, but keep our platonic relationship. She promised not to burden me with her debt, and we had a prenuptial agreement and all. I know that this is fraud of the government, hence the throwaway, but we were both so damaged and needed somebody, if not intimately. The past 3 years have been about as good as expected, if not better. Cass is great, better than great. She keeps the house spotless, has food ready every night when I get home, and has been working overnights as a baker, and almost has her debt paid off. Her condition has improved greatly, also, due to the great medical care that she was able to receive. With the boys, she's a saint. She tells them about their mother, shows them pictures, takes them places for fun, and even taught them how to read. Of course, the 6-year-old just finished kindergarten, but my 4-year-old is going to be the smartest kid in his class next year. Sometimes the 4-year-old calls her Mummy, but she shushes him and reminds him that her name is Cass and that Mummy is the angel whose picture is above the fireplace. Once her debt is fully paid off, the kids are in school, and she saves up a bit of money, she's going to go into a nursing program. Our relationship. Still platonic, but very caring. I've cried on her shoulders more times than I can count, and she's done the same. One night, I was very stressed out and yelled at her about something pretty inconsequential. She had taken my sons to see Santa without me. Aww. She, of course, became quite frightened, but we worked it out, and I even offered to pay for her to see a counselor, but she didn't. That was 2 years ago, and we've had little fights ever since, but have been able to work through them. She seems to understand me whenever I'm hurt, upset, or angry, and is calming in a way that I can't explain. The problem, Reddit, is that I think I might be falling for her. I've been noticing little things. Her scent, her smile, her laugh, the way she smiles with her eyes when she sees me, how much my boys love her, not to mention that she's gorgeous, hardworking, and one of the strongest people I've ever encountered. A few nights ago, I almost kissed her after we put the boys to bed, and her hugs goodbye have started lasting a little bit longer. The other day, she was taking a nap in my bed, she was washing her sheets, and I wanted to join her. Not have sex with her, just lay with her, and hold and kiss her. I don't know what to do, or how to even bring this up. It's been 4 years since my wife died. I can only think of a quote from the Song of Ice and Fire books, in which a character says that, when the sun has set, no candle can replace it, meaning that since his true love has died, nobody could replace him. That's how I used to feel, but there's been days where my thoughts have been occupied with Cass, and I haven't even thought about my wife. I feel bad about it, and I still miss her, but I never thought that I'd be able to move on. I feel guilty and disloyal. At the same time, I want her. Not just sexually or physically, I want to be romantically intimate with her, not just as friends. I don't know how to bring it up. I don't want to scare her or make her uncomfortable, but this is becoming more difficult than I could have ever imagined. I was thinking about asking her to get dinner, just the two of us, and then bringing it up. But what if she refuses? How can I gauge her interest? If it means anything, the other day she was having a hard time with the boys. They were restless and being out of hand, so I brought her home some of her favorite flowers. She was extremely giddy and gave me another lasting hug and a quick kiss on the lips. I was taken aback, but she pranced around, finishing dinner and putting flowers in the vase. What does this mean? Edit. Screw it. It's been an hour on here, and you've all convinced me to tell her. I've called her favorite fancy restaurant and made a reservation. Her brother agreed to babysit and let her and me stay at his place tonight if she isn't into it or feels uncomfortable. She paid off her debt this morning. Apparently, just texted me a picture of the check. And next week is our 3-year anniversary, so that's the prelude. I'm going to tell her at dessert. I'm nervous as shit. Don't worry, I'll update y'all, because so many have demanded it so. Update. Everything went amazing. Just got home. Love Reddit. We'll update tomorrow. Time to go make out with my wife. Update 2. Last night was hectic as shit at first. Our younger son had eaten what he calls a giant fuzzy spider, and Cass wanted to take him to the hospital even though he was fine. Her brother, we'll call him Joe, told her that he would take care of it and basically forced her out of the house to celebrate getting out of debt. She didn't really seem like she wanted to go at all. I became effing nervous. So we got to the restaurant pretty early, but luckily they had a table. She ordered wine, which was odd because she hasn't drunk much since she broke up with her ex, but I figured that it was a time to celebrate. We made small talk for a while, but it seemed forced. I knew that I had to tell her soon. So, before the entrees even came, I said that I had something to talk to her about. She didn't smile and told me that she knew. Joe told her. And my goddamn heart almost stopped. That mother... Kidding? I hurriedly told her that I was so sorry. I didn't want her to find out that way. I wanted to tell her myself. She shook her head, frowned, and said that it was okay. She just wanted me to be happy and that I deserved it. I told her that I didn't want to stress her out or to make her uncomfortable, but I just needed to tell her and see how she felt, and that it was completely up to her. She gave me a look and said that it was actually up to me, and just to do what made me happy. She said that she was probably going to move out after her program ended and promised to stay out of the way until then. It was then that I realized that something was a bit off, and I asked her what the hell had Joe told her. She said that he'd told her that I wanted to take her out to dinner to tell her that I'd started developing feelings for a girl, and wanted to ask Cass if it would be okay if I asked the girl out. It was then I realized Joe had set me up for the most climactic pickup line ever to exist. Our entrees came. I had shrimp and pesto gnocchi, and she had crab legs for you detail lovers. And I explained that yes, I had started developing feelings for a girl. I just didn't want it to mess up what we had. And she said that it wouldn't mess anything up. She still loved the boys and would take care of them in the house. I continued to then explain that I wasn't going to ask the girl on a date though, and she asked incredulously, "Why not?" Then I dropped my smoothest line I've ever dropped, because I'm already on a date with her. Right? Thanks, Joe, because he must know about your planned movie and really wanted that line. She gave me this look that she gives my sons when they tell her things like, "I'm going to the mall by myself," or "I have a girlfriend named Tammy." And then she looked away, smiled, and shook her head and asked, "Really?" I nodded and told her that I cared about her more than anybody else alive, other than my sons, of course, that I loved our family, and that I had fallen in love with her. She then took a drink of wine, rolled her eyes, and said, "About effing time, Alex." And I'll never forget what happened next. Maybe it was a faux pas, but I leaned across the table and kissed her, spilled her wine. But neither of us cared, and we kissed for about a minute before she told me to get off her before her crab legs got cold. This was joking, but not. You'd have to know her. After leaving the restaurant, we got ice cream and sat around and kissed some more before heading home. Joe was sitting on our couch watching one of those VH1 dating shows with a shit-eating grin on his face, and Cass ran in, screaming at him that he ruined everything and that she was going to have to move in with Mum now. We let him believe it for about 5 seconds before bursting into laughter. He shook my hand and told me that the boys were sleeping and then left. I picked Cass up and kissed her and carried her to my room where we, well, made out for like 2 hours and snuggled the shit out of each other. She isn't ready for anything else, but emphasized yet. I'll give her all the time in the world. At one point, the youngest son came in because of a nightmare and brought his dog, a golden retriever puppy, and claimed that the doggy was scared. So we, of course, let him in. I woke up early to make everyone breakfast, and of course deliver, and I'm about to go and kiss my wife goodbye and ask my boss for the second part of the day off so that I can spend more time with her while the boys are at school. Preschool. I'm really sorry that I haven't replied to everything. I was a little busy, but thank you all for the support. Update 3. But I'm still unsure of how to provide proof. I've lost the receipt for the restaurant and didn't pay with a card, and won't post pictures for obvious reasons, such as years of defrauding the government. But I will deliver and find a way. I promise, as a man of my word. Haven't I always delivered so far? And to those of you who are talking about a second wedding ceremony, we just kissed for the first time 2 nights ago. Overly attached, huh, Reddit? Finally, thank you to whoever gave me gold. I spent about $25 last night buying Joe beers, but next time, please use that money for real good. Take a vet to lunch, learn CPR. I don't know, but again, many thanks to you. I promise I'll update again in the future, but don't be angry if it isn't very often. I've been a little busier than normal. Cheers. Update 4. TLDR of the My Life. My wife died 4 years ago when I was deployed, and I, Alex, 28 male, ended up marrying the girl, Cass, 24 female, who was taking care of my children and keeping up with my house while I was grieving. I did this because she was having medical issues stemming from past domestic abuse and had no insurance. Apparently I can't post this as an update because of some rule. It's fine. I'd advise anybody to look through my past submissions. I don't think I can post them on here, if you're interested in what happened about a month ago, but apparently this is a different issue. Things are going very well, except I started developing feelings for her. I was afraid of scaring her or making her feel unsafe, but Reddit convinced me to take the plunge. Now I'm happily dating my wife. Hey everybody, I hope your workday is going well. My day has been crazy. Everything has been going wonderfully lately though. It was somewhat strange at first explaining it to our friends and family, but most of them had already caught on, including my sons, who act as if nothing has changed. I'm pretty sure those little effers knew the entire time. Anyways, last night I came home and Cass was out of it. Dinner was burnt, which is no big deal. I can't really cook well or anything, but it's out of character, and she was drinking. Lightly. Only 1 or 2 glasses of wine. I asked her what was wrong. Obviously I was concerned, and she told me that her ex-boyfriend, shithead, 30 male, got parole last week. I was flabbergasted, since she should have been able to testify at his parole hearing, I believe. Apparently the crime that he was incarcerated for was unrelated to the abuse, which I had always assumed was the reason, but Cass had been 1, assured it would put him away for a decade at least, and 2, had been far too afraid to testify against him or press charges. Apparently he'd been arrested for this felony, and when he was being held, he asked her to post bail. But instead, she asked my first wife for help moving out and moving on. I don't know what to do. I don't think that we have any legal ways to put him back in prison. She knows that she should have gone to the police and is guilt-ridden and upset about it now. I know that she's going to be safe, because if he tries to even contact her, I'll take a legal recourse of action to make sure that he doesn't so much as touch her. I've taken off work today, but promised that even when I go back, I'll have my buddies stopping by throughout the day. But I don't know how to make her feel safe. I've contacted my lawyer about filing a restraining order, and he said that it shouldn't be too hard. But she's a mess. I just don't know how to make her believe that she's okay. I doubt this piece of shit will come around, but I know what I'm going to do if he tries. Update 5. Hey Reddit, I first of all would like to apologize for not keeping you guys updated. I've honestly just been pretty occupied with life lately, and last night I had trouble sleeping. I was just browsing the internet when an article came up about Reddit, and I thought, I wonder how those nice people are doing. Then I signed in and realized that a lot of you really cared about how my life is going with Cass. The answer is, pretty well now. Things got tough for a while when her ex was released from prison last year though. She was so afraid that he would contact her, until he did. I remember that night like it was 5 minutes ago. Somebody rang our doorbell and the oldest son answered. He asked for Cass. She told the boys to go upstairs and gave me a look, and I knew. But she didn't look scared. The bastard apologized and begged for forgiveness and asked for a second chance. She was so brave. I wanted to kill him, but she told him no and asked him to leave. He did, and he tried to contact her a few more times before we got an order of protection against him. Last I heard, he moved upstate to live with his dad or something. Around this time, her brother Joe also got into a really bad car accident and ended up having to move in with us for a while. He's a great guy and one of my best friends, so we didn't mind, but it was a stressful time. About 7 or 8 months ago, we finally consummated our marriage, I guess you can say. The boys are doing great and are really happy. Cass got a pretty good job, although I think she's working too much overtime and loves it. We're expecting our first child in February and couldn't be more excited. You could say that life is pretty good. I'll be around for another few hours if you guys have any questions. Final update. Technically, she was born early March, but I didn't want to make the title "It Was a Girl." Sorry for not updating. It was a pretty rough pregnancy, and Cass has put her foot down about wanting more. I guess 3 is enough, but everything turned out great. Little Therese was 21 inches and 9 pounds at birth, and as bald as I am. She's way easier than the boys were. She hardly ever cries and is the most photogenic baby ever. Our youngest son is completely smitten and always tries to help. It's less cute than you think. Joe is also doing okay. His back is still bothering him, but he's dating a girl who actually went to my high school, 2 years younger than me though. He is pretty happy with her, and we're all very happy for him. Other than the new fatherhood, not much to update. I'm home watching the baby today while Cass is out, so I should be around for a while. Am I the asshole for not telling my wife the real reason why I married her? To give some context to my current situation, I need to provide some background information. About 14 years ago, I, male 42 today, got my ME/Eng degree but was struggling to find work. I did eventually land a job working for a medium-sized company, but even then I was still struggling financially as I owed so much debt in student loans and lived in a pretty expensive city. It was admittedly a pretty low point in my life. I'm sure many people can relate to the feeling that you've done so much schoolwork and then don't have much to show for it. I did, however, build a good relationship with my boss, male 84 today, as in my mind, this was the easiest way to earn promotions and in turn, a high income. Eventually, I met my boss's family. One thing that quickly became obvious was that his daughter, Rose, female 39 today, liked me a lot. I didn't think too much of it at the time because I thought mixing my professional and personal lives would be a bad idea. Also, I didn't reciprocate her feelings in any way. Though for obvious reasons, I was always exceptionally polite to her at every interaction. Long story short, my boss's wife, female 78 today, found out, and I started getting invited by my boss to his house pretty regularly for things like dinners, etc. Throughout all of these, my boss and his wife would somehow always steer conversations in ways that led to me talking to Rose, or would leave the room for some reason or another, just leaving the two of us together. Later, my boss would even tell me things like how I felt like family and he'd be happy to recommend me to higher positions, etc., since his wife and daughter are so fond of me. Needless to say, I started talking more to Rose, and within weeks, I got a promotion. While I will admit to not feeling much of a romantic connection with Rose, I did put a lot of effort into fostering that relationship, and she was happy with the attention I was giving her. After a few months of this, we were married. As you can imagine, my career really took off then. However, I did leave the company roughly 2 years after getting married, and with the recommendations I was able to get from my former boss/father-in-law and several other people he introduced me to, I was able to secure a good position elsewhere. Today, I can happily say that after being married for 12 years and having 3 children together, there is no other woman that I'd rather spend my life with. Because I feel like this, I've always felt that my primary motivator for getting married to Rose is no longer relevant. That being said, I had lunch with 2 of my longtime friends, Michael and Wilson, a few days ago. We haven't seen each other in about a year, so it was a nice opportunity to catch up. I'd like to add that Michael and Wilson are both familiar with my situation, as we were in regular contact back then. At one point in the conversation, Michael asked if Rose ever found out the real reason why I decided to marry her. I told him of course not, and that her finding out would be needlessly painful for her. Wilson agreed with Michael, saying things like honesty and transparency were the main things he and his wife picked up from couples therapy, and that it would be better long-term if Rose found out. I reaffirmed to them that Rose not knowing would be best for our family, and the conversation largely ended there. That being said, I've started to think more about what they've said and do feel a little guilty. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Screwy Year says, "Don't ever tell her. It's probably been in the back of her mind the whole time. I'm sure someone in the past might have tried to use her that way. My mum didn't love my dad. She married him to get away from her controlling family and to move us to the US. They've been married over 50 years now, and they love each other. She's told me the truth, suspects my dad knows, but will never tell him. I know they would each sacrifice their lives for each other. It's a lie, but an acceptable one, and you're the asshole for marrying her for profit, but never let her know. Focus on the now. I'm glad you got away from her dad's company. That probably reassured her somewhat. The two of you have built a beautiful life. Don't mess it up over two friends that you see once a year. Your friend might end up spilling the beans to her. Be careful." Exactly this, and I don't think OP has considered that since the friends know, there is nearly 100% guarantee that other people have been told this as well. Wives, family members, etc. Normally, I am for honesty, but this would break her, and as long as you love her now, don't tell her. But you did a really shitty thing. You're the asshole for using her back then. I guess I'll just be echoing the sentiment of all those people as well. You're 12 years deep into sunk cost fallacy, OP. You obviously did use her because you admitted to not loving her at all, but you did love the power and money that you got through the relationship that you fostered with her. If you want to maintain the status quo, you probably want to follow up with those friends and be like, "Hey guys, please don't spill the beans to her," because it seems as though that's where this is headed, if I were to guess. But yeah, definitely you're the asshole for how this relationship started and how it's continued. Update. I just saw my previous post this morning and was surprised and a little overwhelmed by the amount of responses I received. Nonetheless, I do think it is appropriate to provide a quick update. I had time to do some self-reflection over the past few days, and my conclusion is that I'm probably the luckiest man in the world to have such a fantastic wife and wonderful children. Rest assured that I have no intention of my wife ever finding out the real reason why I decided to marry her. Also, I'm very confident that my two friends won't say anything to my wife. I failed to mention it earlier, but I also have some ammunition on Michael's marriage, and given that Wilson is in couples therapy, I'm highly doubtful he'd say anything. Even without this, I can't imagine either of them overstepping such a boundary. I'm sure many of you are wondering how they knew in the first place. The real reason they knew was because we were all housemates at the time, and they were able to witness the situation unfold firsthand. I guess you could say that while I'm largely an introverted person, I still talk a lot, especially with my friends. I do still feel guilty about my initial motivation to pursue my wife, but also very grateful for how things turned out. I'd like to think she's also grateful. Over the last few days, I've been trying to turn this gratitude into action to make my wife feel appreciated. Yesterday, I brought her breakfast in bed, and in the evening after work, I brought her a surprisingly expensive bouquet of flowers. Tonight, we have reservations for her favorite restaurant and a sitter who will watch the children. I know these things are minor in the grand scheme of things, but I want to do more thoughtful things for my wife. This will be my early New Year's resolution. In the comments, Draken's Pride says, "I don't think this is the relationship killer that you think it is. There's a few ways to rephrase the whole story to make it sound sweet and romantic. I'm so grateful to your dad for encouraging me to spend time with you. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if he hadn't done that. Knowing me, I might have remained lonely and clueless forever. But instead, I have you, and I am the luckiest man in the world, and I hope to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." You know, I was thinking something along the lines like that. Then you'll never have to worry about it coming back at you. Mutually assured destruction is an odd way to have friendships. I'm pretty sure like everyone with a close friend will know something that would destroy certain aspects of their life if they started blabbing about it. Quotes, I'm very confident that my two friends won't say anything to my wife. I failed to mention it earlier, but I also have some ammunition on Michael's marriage, and given that Wilson is in couples therapy, I'm highly doubtful he'd say anything. This gives me a lot of pause. Michael won't say anything because OP also has something on him and his marriage, which sounds kind of awful. Why do both of them have relationship-ending secrets they're keeping from their wives? Wilson not saying anything because he's in couples therapy is also off, but in a different way. Dude already said that couples therapy has taught him a lot about the importance of honesty and open communication in relationships. If anything, he's probably more likely to tell. This is totally going to blow up in his face at some point. Yup, and I highly doubt he's going to share that with Reddit if and when that happens. So I stay committed to the fact that people share way too much of their lives on here, but I am absolutely here for it. I'd imagine the people that are keeping relationship-ending secrets from their significant other is probably a lot higher than we would think, but hey, we're never going to get data for that, we don't really know. Cheers to another 12 years, OP.